Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Midnight's Edge in the morning this Friday. And I do believe it's going to be an eventful one. Certainly has been an eventful week, actually, in Hollywood. Some dramatic stuff, some not so dramatic, and some downright tragic stuff. And we're going to get into all of that. Joining me to do that is our regular guest on Friday, Kamran Pasha. How are you?
I'm well. I'm really excited to be on today, and Valliant, it's always great to see you. And by the way, Valliant, I've been pushing your channel on my Patreon when people keep asking me where do I go to get some analysis of the finances. I say you got to go to Valliant.
Well, thank you. And your Patreon's awesome, man. I'm glad you were my first person I ever subbed to on Patreon. So, well, good.
That is awesome. And of course, the other guest today is Valliant Renegade, who, as you all know, is awesome when it comes to all kinds of financial analysis. So welcome to the show. How are you? Thanks for joining today.
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Excellent. And also joining us, if his computer is cooperating, is Tom.
Not really.
I hear a voice.
Yeah, we hear you, so that's always a good start.
I don't know, everything's lagging right now.
Oh, we can't have everything, but we are live, and if you have to bow out, then you have to.
I just had to. It's just got to catch up.
Yeah, all right. Well, sometimes it be like that. And we also have a nice crowd joining us today. We have Naked Fame is here, Mags is here, Manuel Patinho is here. I hope I pronounced that right. Lindsay the Cynical Geek, Lady Liontooth, Craig Welter, Mr. Tickletrunk, Rick Lucy, Donny Canup, the Norwegian Blue, who's not actually Norwegian, Gran Wasu 42.
I'm willing to bet he's not blue either.
Yeah, this is truth. This is true. So yeah, we have a pretty decent collection of people from all over the place. Everyone, big yourself up, represent, and smash like, and help share this stream, because I have to say, it was really difficult to come up with the title for this without YouTube having kind of like a little nervous breakdown, because we'll be talking some, shall we say, real shit today. And of course, afterwards, we also have everything that's happened earlier in the week with basically all MCU titles, with the exception of Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3 being pushed back a few months. That's nothing compared to Indiana Jones being pushed back a full year. And of course, there's way, way more to pick apart with that. Yeah. So we have Kamran Pasha here for that.
Yeah, there's I'm happy to talk about it. A lot of it is what I predicted was going to happen here on this channel just almost 2 weeks ago. And then even then people are like, that sounds crazy. And, Hollywood is in a crazy moment where everything that sounds crazy happens within 2 weeks of you saying it. So.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird, but that's how it is. So let us begin by just going through a couple of super chats, because we have some of those before we get into the matter at hand. Now we have a huge $50 super chat from some other little YouTuber called Valliant Renegade. So who happens to be here on the panel. So this was obviously sent before the invite came, but thank you in any event. And Valliant says, "What a terrible tragedy. Prayers for the families. I suspect we will learn shortly that basic firearm safety protocols were neglected by the production and perhaps Baldwin as well. No reason to think it was intentional. Let's not jump to conclusions." And yes, I will say that right away before we move on. Everyone, be cool. Just be cool about this. There's no need to jump to any conclusions. And I know that Alec Baldwin, he's quite the divisive figure. But I would like to just submit to everyone, imagine if this had happened to David Chappelle or someone that you may like. Don't be that other side. Like, don't let emotions and the personal animosity one may have for any individual person come in the way here.
Yeah,
there's a tragedy all around here.
Yeah, someone died here. So someone died. Someone who has loved ones, family,
children.
Yeah, and children. Someone who yesterday morning thought they were just going to work, right? And so we're gonna have a respectful conversation about some of the issues around this kind of incident, right? And leave it at that, because this is a human being's life we're talking about. We're just gonna keep it that. And I asked the chat, I know what Baldwin does for a lot of people, but I asked the chat, just remember, someone died here, so let's just try to keep this at a high class level and not at a low class level. Okay.
Exactly. Agreed completely. So let's try to be better than those who would jump to conclusions if this were Chris Pratt or something. And I do believe that it's a coincidence that it was Baldwin. If it wasn't him, it would have been Travis Fimmel, or it would have been Jensen Ackles, or someone else who would have been handed a gun with presumably a live round. But before that, getting caught up on Super Chats, Moldovan Alin says for 25 Romanian, seeing Dune a second time, it's that good. Tom, yes, 3D Atmos makes the viewing experience better, especially outdoor scenes. Sad to hear about the accident. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
And Hyper said, yeah.
Here's my question though: are they actually doing 3D IMAX screenings? Because I've seen regular IMAX screenings and I've seen 3D, but I've not seen the two paired. Like, that's gonna be upsetting if they didn't do that. I don't know. That's weird.
Then we have Hypergiver 2, who said for $10, it's horrible that Miss Hutchins lost her life on set. But it's disgusting how so many news outlets are trying to politicize what boils down to a freak accident. Last time this happened was in '93. And that, of course, would have been Brandon Lee, which is a story all on its own. And even that wasn't the first time. That was just a most recent time. Hypergiver 2 also said for another $10, we need to look at the commonality of this incident to the others from 87 and 93. I think you mean 84. All three involved revolvers, which cannot use simulated recoil like a modern firearm. Even blanks can be lethal. And yeah, we're going to get into that. Oliver Klosov said for $2, greetings programs. Yes, the programs greet you. And says for $4.99. Hi, gents. Hello, everyone.
And we finally were on screen together this week on Toxic Femininity, and she's as lovely as I imagined her to be. And I hope she'll come on one day when I'm on this channel. Maybe she'll come on today.
Maybe she will. She certainly has the link. So if she has the opportunity, that is the limiting factor, more so than anything else. And with that, I believe at least we are caught up with classic super chats that I cannot get up on screen. Let's see if there's anything more here. Yeah, actually there is. Ironcaster says for $5, Happy Dunes Day. Be sure to put out your spice for Muad'Dib. Yeah, I'm very sorry that Dune is going to be a little bit overshadowed in the next few days. So yeah, not great timing. They really needed to release it in the US, 6 weeks ago, which was when I saw it in Norway.
Well, we do have early projections from last night's previews.
That should be interesting. Let's hear them.
$5.1 million last night. So it's not horrible. It's not great.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too impressive.
That doesn't sound that great. I mean, I would say it was sold out here in Santa Monica as early as Tuesday. I went to my AMC app on Tuesday and my theater was pretty much sold out. I had to go to another theater. So
yeah, Venom was what, 11.6 if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So
Venom is kicking Dune's ass, is what you're saying.
Well, you have to take into consideration though. you got basically 2 screenings of Venom for what you get for one of 2. Because Venom's only 90 minutes.
Right. And the fact that Venom wasn't concurrently released anywhere. And, you know, like a lot of people last night, it's like, hey, I can't go see it tonight. So I was up till 12:30 in the morning, you know, midnight.
I think
watching
HBO
Dune.
Max killed it. I really do.
Yeah.
I think this is one of those cases where Legendary was right. But hopefully that's good news for the sequel, because we know Ann Sarnoff, who has been out there talking a little bit about it, and people have been kind of misquoting here. No, there's not been a sequel confirmed yet. I've seen that on
far from it.
Yeah, but she has confirmed what we have been saying for the last 6 months now, almost, that, or a few months at least, that it's going to all depend on how it plays on HBO Max. And if it's successful for them there, they will definitely green light the sequels. And my guess is they might even shoot the sequels back to back if that's the case.
Well, I will say this: a few people that I was like, "Hey, you want to go see Dune?" They're like, "I'm going to go watch it on HBO Max." I'm like, "Why are you going to watch this on HBO Max? I watch it on a big theater, right?" So, I mean, I know people that are going to watch it at home, and you know, so they're because they said, "No, I'm not coming to the theater this weekend." So clearly, it has. I know them directly; it's having an impact.
Yeah, and I also think that it had a huge impact that it opened in some limited European markets 6 weeks ago. I think when that happened, and because I just know here in our circles, when I was like calling you guys from the car, because you were live on After Dark, Valliant, you were there, and gave like my live reaction straight out of the theater, literally driving home. And I could like tell right there that fuck, like you guys, you really want to see it now. You want to see it now. You don't want to see it afterwards. You don't want to see it in 2 weeks. You don't want to see it in 4 weeks. You certainly don't want to see it in 6 weeks. By that time, your urge to need to see it will have gone.
Yeah, it's a very
it needed to open within 1 week, because like they kind of like they blew their load. The hype train was 6 weeks ago.
Yeah. You know, but, you know, like I said, you know, Warner Brothers is, you know, going through a lot of internal chaos, right? And a lot of bad decision making as you know, and I'm just waiting for Discovery to take over, because hopefully they'll put the train on track. But it's literally, it feels like the decisions one is making as the enemy troops are about to march in and take the capital, right? You know, it's just a lot of things you're not thinking out properly.
Yeah, indeed. So we'll see how the numbers are over the weekend, but I will say it's not a flying start, and I also think that it may have been a very bad decision to make this movie in such a way that it really needs to be enjoyed in an IMAX screen, because now the next couple of weeks are the only times when an audience will actually have the opportunity to see it in an IMAX screen. For the rest of history, people will see it in their home, on their big screen TV, whether it be on a DVD, Blu-ray, 4K Blu-ray, or streaming. They're going to see it from the privacy of their home that way. They won't be able to enjoy this huge spectacle it was meant to be. And how is the movie going to be just on a small screen compared to the full experience? I don't know. I don't know how that is going to adversely affect it in the long run.
Yeah.
Which sucks, because it seems like most people are enjoying it. Like, I've only ran into a few people who haven't, and usually there's, you know, like, you know, it's just either like a lot of, it just was overly boring, or just clearly wasn't their cup of tea, or it wasn't the movie they were expecting in their head, right? Like, which is fair. Like, this is one of those situations where Dune is a 50-plus-year-old book. You've had a lot of people that have read the books and got invested in the universe, and they have kind of in their head this idea of what kind of a translation it should be. Like, we saw the same thing with Lord of the Rings to an extent, but Peter Jackson just got lucky that most people liked what he did with it. And I think this is a similar situation here, as far as, like, you know, Denny getting to put his vision on screen. And I feel like it was a beautifully shot film. I've heard some people call it pretentious. It's like, yes, it is, but it's like one of those stories that almost has to be that way.
But the book is pretentious.
Exactly. It's kind of like it's part of its, you know, formula, I guess. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Like, to me, this was almost a perfect package. There's just a few minor gripes I had with it, but other than that, I can't wait to see it again. So I think everybody here now has seen it, right? Like, have you seen it yet, Cameron? You're waiting until this weekend.
No, I'm
right?
waiting till I'm going with some friends tonight. I'm excited for it, and I'm likely, especially after what Andre just said, I have another friend who wanted to see it next week. So I think I'm going to go to, I'm just going to regular theater for tonight, but I think I'm going to go to IMAX with my friend, next week.
That's what I'm doing. I watched it last night because I wanted to see it, but I absolutely plan to go to an IMAX. I'm hoping this weekend I'll find some time, but it might be another week or two before I can get over to an IMAX theater. It's about an hour away from here right now.
So you liked it. So you liked it, Valliant.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I really did.
Yeah.
I was talking to Tom about it late last night, matter of fact.
Very cool. I suspect that we're probably going to have a second Dune roundtable over the course of this weekend, because we had one yesterday with Robert Meyer Burnett and Chris Gore. We were able to get the two of them together. For those that haven't seen it yet, be sure to check that out, because it was a magnificent conversation. But getting back into the super chats and to the first main story of today, Delete the Teens says, "Hail Andre, Tom, Valliant, Kamran, Wrenches, and chat. This is a tragic situation that should never have happened. We haven't heard the whole story." No, indeed. Everyone keep that in mind. Mm-hmm. Here, there are a lot of unknowns, so no one should jump to conclusions at this point, and one should certainly not politicize this. This is just a plain tragedy. Again, if it wasn't that particular shooter, it could have been any other one who was scripted to fire a gun in the movie. Yeah. Could have been anyone. Mm-hmm. On that note, Mr. Tickletrunk says, "I feel really bad for Alec. Can't imagine what he's even thinking right now. I also feel worse for her and her family." Yeah, indeed. That's like what hits me the most, because like this was a wife and a mother of a very young child. So it's just a tragedy all around. Like there's no positive outcome here for anyone. Then Darius Münchhausen sent us a $1.49 super sticker, and Raging Golden Eagle says for $5, "No wonder Hollywood is anti-gun. If they can cause this much damage with props, imagine giving these incompetents real weapons." Well, actually,
let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because it's not a prop.
Yeah.
This word prop is getting thrown around too much, and it's one thing to have a prop weapon. A prop gun is a purely fake weapon. It is cast.
Valliant, 1 second. Sorry. Actually, because I trust that everyone here knows what happened yesterday during the filming of the movie Rust. There was what is being referred to as an accidental discharge. Now, the terms, one can, of course, you can argue how accidental it was. You can argue. We don't know. What we do know, though, is that there was a gun on set during either filming or rehearsal that was held by Alec Baldwin. It was fired by Alec Baldwin. But again, if it wasn't him, it could easily have been someone else. It was seemingly fired in the direction of the camera, which doesn't necessarily mean anything. If you look at any still there has ever been, or any footage where you see in the direction of the barrel, in order to film that, they have to aim the gun towards the camera. So there's nothing wrong with that in principle. And then somehow, whether one round was fired, 2 rounds were fired, that we do not know. What we do know is that the director, he was hit either directly or indirectly in the shoulder. He received, and he was sent to hospital for treatment. He apparently, according to tweets from others on set, he is out of hospital, so he's seemingly out of danger, and he's probably not too badly injured. So let's all be grateful for that.
Amen.
And then, unfortunately, it was the director of photography who was hit in the stomach, and she did not survive till she arrived to the hospital. So this is a tragedy for all involved, and we don't know what happened. But there seems to be some misconceptions about a prop gun. And there's every reason to think that, like so many other productions, this wasn't actually a prop gun. Valliant, would you care to do a demonstration for what might be going on here?
Sure. And I mean, when I sent that link backstage, the Hollywood Reporter, they started talking about Alec Baldwin's statement. Well, I know we'll get to that in a minute, but my point is even in the article, they're referring to this, the director of photography, Helena Hutchins, I hope I'm saying that right. If I'm not, I sincerely apologize. Age 42, died Thursday after being injured when the prop gun was discharged. So let's kind of do some basic stuff here. So for those of you who haven't figured it out, I mean, I'm the guy on Sig Hat here on YouTube. I've been around firearms my entire life.
Valliant. For those of us who are not from America, what does a Sig Hat signify?
I'm sorry, Sig Sauer. Sig Sauer is a brand of firearms manufactured in New Hampshire in the U.S. Very popular brand of firearms, very good brand of firearms. They make pistols, rifles, all kind of different stuff. So I'm a Sig Sauer guy. I really like their brand of products. What I want everybody to understand here is that, on these sets, gun safety should, and this should be for anybody, is always paramount. A prop gun, a true prop gun, is going to be a piece of plastic or rubber or some type of composite material. It's literally just a molded cast that looks like a gun. You cannot load a live round or a cartridge into it. You cannot fire it. There is nothing operational on that gun per se. When you are on set and you have to, and we are going to film a scene where we have guns firing, where you see in a movie where they have gunfights, those are real weapons. They are simply loaded with either blanks or dummy rounds or something, but those are real weapons that are generally handled by a prop master or a weapons master on set. And I may be using slightly the wrong language, but the prop master is involved and they're initially responsible for that safety. What I want folks to understand, and I'm going to use this as illustrative purposes here for YouTube, a prop gun and a real weapon, and this is unloaded right now for everybody. This is a Sig Sauer P229. It's going to look the same. The difference is the operation. Now, if you're a prop master and you're on set and you're going to have a scene where an actor has to take a weapon and fire it for a shot, for either at another actor or like Andre's talking about, where they need a scene where pretend you're the camera and you want a shot like this where you're looking down the barrel. Okay. That's why I would be pointed in that direction, folks, for that reason. And it's possible that the call was for Alec Baldwin, and we're speculating at this point. The call was for Alec Baldwin to fire the weapon, basically in the direction of, over the shoulder, behind, but at the camera where the director and the director of photography or cinematographer would have been. Now, the prop master is supposed to load that weapon because you cannot, in a movie, you cannot replicate the natural recoil action of a weapon when you fire. Now, they were probably using a revolver. This is an old Western. They might have been using a shotgun or a rifle. We don't even know what type of weapon.
I believe it was a revolver from the report, but I could be wrong.
Okay, thank you, Tom. So, point is that in order to get a real sense of recoil, okay, you have to have some type of load, a real load in there. Now, this is not a bullet. This is a cartridge. This is a 9mm cartridge that loads into this P229. It has a casing that is loaded with powder. It has a primer. The bullet is this piece on the front that comes out the muzzle when you pull the trigger on whatever firearm this is loaded into. A blank, okay, which will give the gun the same appearance of recoil, muzzle climb, and it firing, is exactly like this, with one key difference: no bullet. Instead, the end of this is usually crimped shut, and it is packed and loaded with powder. Now, sometimes those loads are what they call half loads or quarter loads, meaning it doesn't burn or blast as much as a real cartridge would, a live round like this. But there is a load in the front because it has to be sealed in order for that powder to burn, for that gas to expand. And when the gas expands, that's what pushes the action back and ejects that shell casing out the side, out the ejection port. So if you want to get all that kind of effect in a movie, you've got to have a real round going. Now, what they stuff in the front usually is something like a wad of cardboard, wax. There's some kind of composite. Sometimes it's plastic, dummy rounds, something like this. Generally speaking, that something will come out the muzzle of the weapon, right? But it's fairly harmless. Can you still injure somebody with those? Yes. Can you still seriously injure somebody with those? Technically, yes. If you're
and that's kind of how the whole thing with Brandon Lee happened was they were using live rounds. The round got lodged inside, and when they put in the other rounds, which you're talking about, that were the capped off rounds with
the dummy rounds, or
the dummy rounds with the actual gunpowder, it dislodged the piece of the other bullet from before. And I'm believing, and again, this is me speculating, I'm believing this is probably a similar situation here. Because what you will do is that you were explaining, Valliant, is you'll switch it out because for closer shots, they will actually use the more explosive gunpowder so you can get the actual muzzle shot and all that kind of stuff for the effect.
Correct. And what's curious about this is that as far as we can tell, this happened twice in succession. You know, one person was hit, another person was hit. So presumably there was 2 rounds discharged and both rounds successively struck 2 different people, which makes me tend to believe that, you know, that kind of accident, while it could have happened that way, that'd be a little bizarre that would happen twice in a row, but we don't know yet, folks. Again, this is speculation.
It could have also been some kind of flack from...
Could have been.
Something
again, this is the big speculation, because this, of course, has happened before. The most famous is Brandon Lee back in 1993, I believe it was. But in 1984, there was another actor whose name escapes me right now, although his name was really Norwegian sounding, in a TV series. And it was in episode 7 of that series when there was some kind of delay and he was like playing with the gun. And again, this is a real a real gun with a blank bullet. But as you said, that blank still has, instead of like a lead bullet, it has like a cardboard or plastic wrapping or something like that, and that is still ejected at force.
Yes.
And he was playing with Russian roulette with this, like literally pointing it towards his head and firing, and that was a very bad decision because the ejection of that piece of cardboard
right against your head.
Enough force to shatter his skull. And then we have a super chat here from RT, who says for $4.99, I knew Helena. My friends who were on set are now blaming the fact that the prop master was non-union. This will be politicized no matter what. Yeah, and that's like the tragedy here, that rather than recognize this for what it in all probability was, a freak accident, maybe with some level of negligence, we don't know, but in any event, a freak accident that no one wanted, that no one benefits from. It's just a sheer tragedy. There are rules in place to prevent this kind of thing, and for whatever reason, the rules that are in place weren't seemingly, we don't know what happened, but the way that it's tempted to think it may have happened, there's no reason to politicize this beyond an absolutely tragic accident that never should have happened. And unfortunately, this is going to be politicized to high heavens.
And I want to say one thing based on the gun, on the safety issue, Andre, just real quick, just to close out kind of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is what should happen on a set. The prop master obviously is initially responsible for making sure that whatever type of round we're using in this scene is loaded correctly in the weapon. That's number one. So if we know we're shooting at, we need an effect of breaking a glass window where nobody's around, or I use the example of, Clint Eastwood shooting at tin cans and bottles back in Unforgiven in 92 or 94. That's a great place to use live rounds because it costs a couple pennies to do that. You set the camera up, you shoot at tin cans and bottles, you break them, you're done. If you then have to turn around and use that weapon and you're using it in a situation where you're firing in the direction of other people to get effect and they have their squib loads on that blow the blood packs and all that kind of stuff, obviously the prop master's responsibility is to make sure that same weapon is then loaded with the correct dummy or blank round so that injuries are non-existent virtually. Now, the other part of this, and this is what bothers me, is that, again, if that was the case, you would hope that not only the prop master checked it, but also the actors should always be trained. If somebody hands me a weapon that I have not had in my possession, the first thing that you do in safety is I'm going to drop that magazine out and I'm going to inspect the rounds. So in this case, my cartridges are live. I am then going to check the chamber to see what's in there. The fact that, if there was a live round loaded in there, you would hope the actors, that's why they should be trained as well to, even though the prop master hands them a prop that is supposed to be ready to go. In this case, the safety protocol should be that actor also knows to inspect that weapon themselves personally before engaging it in a scene. Now, it could also be to where they did indeed have the correct blanks or squib load or dummy loads, whatever they were using in there. And Mr. Baldwin did inspect it and said, okay, I've done my inspection. Everything looks good. And then some freak accident like this still could have happened. So we don't know. And that's why I want to make it clear to everybody, don't jump to conclusions on this. We'll have to wait. I don't agree with Mr. Baldwin on a lot of things, like I know a lot of our viewers don't, but I'll be honest with you right now. I feel for the guy. I cannot imagine mentally, psychologically, emotionally what that man is going through. He's right now, he's making himself responsible for injuring one human being and killing another. Whether he is actually responsible or not, that's how he's feeling right now. So let's all take a step back and just kind of chill out a little bit and just wait to see what happens here.
Right. And the other thing I keep seeing is a lot of people asking the question, why would he be aiming the gun at them? That's a very valid question. And here's the reason why. And as we were pointing out earlier, when you're doing more close-up shots, is people use the round with more gunpowder.
Like this in the camera.
Valliant was pointing at the camera. So, and that's exactly why. The director and the DP, well, the DP would be directly behind the camera, and the director would 9 times out of 10 be to the side of or right behind the DP.
Right over her shoulder.
So this is probably how this happened. And again, complete freak accident. I see a lot of people wanting to jump to certain conclusions. And it's one of those things where, again, we're going to find out more as we go along, but there has been more than enough situations where there's been live rounds on sets as well. There's other people going, what was their live rounds doing? You guys, here's the thing. There's been some crazy fucking directors in the past. There has been situations where prior to recent years where they've had more technologies where, let me tell you, if you're watching an old Western and there's a gunfight and you're in the scene and all of a sudden right behind the guy's head on screen, the window breaks 9 times out of 10 before squibs. That was some guy off camera shooting that window with a live bullet. Like, that's the way they did these kind of things. Shotguns are used often in special effects, more times than you'd imagine, in explosions and in any kind of, like the scene in Scanners is a prime example where the guy's head blows up. All they did was just use a shotgun and blew the dummy's head up. Like, these things are on the set sometimes, and again, it all has to do with negligence and people who should have been paying attention to certain things. So, and I'm being told I'm being digitized, so I'm going to refresh myself. So hopefully I'm coming through better. Anyway, continue, guys.
You come through fine for me. So
I can hear you pretty good. But no, Tom's right. I mean, look, using live ammunition, like I said, for the proper type of shot is still the most cost-effective and best-looking thing, because anytime you can do an effect in camera, and especially when you're talking about, it costs a few dollars worth of live ammunition to shoot up a car from a safe distance. If you want to get that effect, obviously with nobody in it, instead of trying to load the car or spend thousands and thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in post-production on special effects, No, just shoot up the side of the car. You can do it very safely if you know what you're doing, if you follow safety protocols. But again, this is why you can have live ammunition, and live ammunition is used on set in the correct circumstances. But we just have to find out. We just have to wait and find out what's going on with this. I don't want to jump. So
no,
go ahead,
Cameron. You've been wanting to say something for a while. I'm sorry.
Well, no, thank you. Well, first I wanted to say to the person who sent us that super chat, since you knew Helena, please extend to her family our condolences. This is someone, that's why I'm asking people in the chat to be respectful. There's people here that knew her, right? And so I see the conspiracy theories and everything else flooding the chat right now. Just there's people in the chat that knew this human being. So let's just, I have a lot of opinions that people consider conspiracy theories. There's a time and a place for that. This isn't the appropriate time. That's
exactly. I agree completely. Everyone remember this. It's not really about Alec Baldwin.
Yeah.
He's a victim here too, but really he's the secondary victim. Someone, a young and upcoming talent, a wife and a mother lost her life for no reason here. So let's be respectful and we're just gonna penned with the conspiracy theories and thoughts on.
Well, and allow me to kind of shift the topic just a little bit, because there are people that are talking about the IATSE situation here, right? Like there is a connection, whether we want to get into that.
That is one thing I do want to get into.
So I think that it is something that we need to should probably jump onto, because there are people that are on both ends that are using it as an excuse and a reason. And then the other side of it is, this is exactly what I've been fucking saying for how long, guys, that this is the kind of shit that's going to happen if you don't have the proper people on set. How many weeks have I been saying this, or months have I been saying this now through all this stuff? I mean, and I'm not just sitting here trying to have an I told you so moment, but I fucking hate that this is the reason, because I've been talking about, the accident on Deadpool and all these other situations where, if you don't have people that are properly trained, if you don't have people that are the best of the best of the best on the set when it comes to doing these kind of things, these kind of tragedies will fucking happen. And I hate being the one that has been saying this for so long. And I hate this is the reason why we're having this conversation today. Because as you just said, Andre, is a woman lost her life. She was a mother. She was a wife. So that means somebody lost their wife, and a couple kids lost. This is a tragic fucking thing that did not have to happen. And it has happened too many times on movies where it shouldn't happen. But do we really feel like this is because of, the unions and the people that are on the set? I want to hear, especially starting with Cameron, because, you've been involved with productions. I mean, how important is it to have the best of the best people on the set?
Well, I wanted to reference that specifically because I've been involved in several productions where there was gunplay, right? And there were normative part of the show. Shows like Sleeper Cell, which is a show about terrorism. We had guns on the set regularly, right? Show on like Nikita, which is show about a female spy. Guns on the set regularly. And this is something that's been in my head since I was a little kid. There's some people in the chat referencing a show that many of you may be too young or were not born to remember, but it was a very influential show for me as a child called Voyagers. It was a time travel show. And it was on in like the late 70s, early 80s for only one season, because the star of that show, John Eric Hexum, he was a model, a male model, very handsome guy, and he was very charismatic, and he was going to become a huge star. And he died. He was on his first sort of big movie break. And he got off this TV show where he was starring the show, and he got a movie. And as a joke, he took a prop gun, put it to his temple as a joke for the crew, and blew his brains out, literally in the middle of the set for no reason. He wasn't even so. That always haunted me as a child, because this guy was going to be. He was very influential to me in his show Voyagers as a kid, and then he was dead. And so when I became a producer and I was on sets, one of the things that always stayed with me is that, part of acting is being very much in the moment and being very childlike and being very, that's the energy of acting as a craft. And it is absolutely critical, in order to allow the actors to do what they do safely, for there to be serious professional adults around them all the time. When I was on these shows, when I was on Sleeper Cell, I was on set one day, and one of our actors, I won't name the actor, but one of our actors was fooling around with a gun, like joking around with the set. And my brain immediately went back to what happened with Mr. Huxham when I was a kid, right? And I went up to him and used my producer authority. I said, stop. I said, assume that that is loaded. He's like, no, the prop master told me there's nothing in it. I said, I don't care. I said, assume that that is a real weapon that's loaded, put that down, and don't do that in front of me ever again, right? Or I'm going to talk to the network and you're done, right? And that, I didn't like handling actors that way, on set. But on that issue, I was like, this is not a joke here. You're going to assume that thing's loaded. And I said that in front of the whole crew. Everyone assume that these weapons are loaded. I don't care. Yeah, you got the armor. The prop master said there's nothing in them. Just assume they're loaded. As long as I'm here, you're going to assume that. And if you start acting that way, I'm going to act with somebody who's playing with a loaded, dangerous weapon, right? I'm going to treat them that way as the authority on the set at the time. We similarly, when I was on Nikita, we had and again, I won't name which actor. One of the actors was given a chance to fire a gun for the first time. I don't think they've ever done it in their careers. I don't think they ever held a weapon in their lives. And the character wasn't a character that was weaponized on the show. It was sort of more of a character that was the background character. And then they were given a chance to do their moment, and they got so excited and so like frenzied about it. And I was like, this is not a game. They had to get excited and frenzied because of the nature of acting, but it was absolutely pivotal that they were surrounded by people that could restrain that, right? And if you are on a production, and again, I won't speak to this production because I don't know the details, but often you're having cases where independent productions, they try to skimp money by getting cheaper people, less experienced people not in the unions who've been trained in order to just make their budget and move forward, especially if they have expensive actors and they feel like they have got to cut it down somewhere else. That's not something you can cut down. And anywhere where a producer or line producer or someone decides that it'll be fine, everything's gonna be fine, we'll just go with someone who is not as expensive and not as experienced to supervise this situation.
Right.
I mean, it's literally nothing is worth that life. Even if it's just nothing is worth that life. The show isn't worth the life. It's just not. And so that's the thing here, is that without these experienced professionals, these kinds of things will happen. A lot of actors have no experience with guns. They're not like Valliant, who are trained, experienced professionals, who are serious people. These are people that have spent much time, talking about how much they hate guns, and they've held a weapon for the first time and they get really excited by it. And again, there's no critique of them. They're human beings. Let them be themselves. But you gotta supervise that, and you can't put the blame on them. Someone, especially that actor that I worked with who had never held a gun in their life. Even I've held a shotgun, right? I've held weapons, and they had never done that. And to have them know these protocols is too much to ask. That's why you've got to have serious people around them who understand this. It's like giving a child their first gun. Any of you who have trained your children to hunt, you remember how serious you were when you put that weapon in their hands, right? You've got to have people that treat it that way.
Well, and yeah, just standard hunter safety. And then, of course, in bigger productions, when people are handling, a lot of our artillery type weapons and shit like that, they'll actually go in to do specific training and stuff. But when you're talking about smaller productions, and that's the thing that I think is going to come out of this whole IATSE thing. Actually, I had that up for a reason, Andre. Yeah. So I was going to get to this. It is like, it all depends on who you have running the set and the type of people that know what they're doing. And Snail Messiah sends in 50 Danish krone and says, because you're being so respectful and humble about the topic. Well, thank you for that. And asks also, could you have a prop master come on and talk about how the set is run? Well, actually, we had Script Doctor on Midnight's Edge After Dark when this actually broke last night. Talk a little bit about it. He's actually worked in the prop department before, but as he pointed out, the guns section of these things and the actual props are two completely different things. Like when you're using guns on set, that is handled by a specific group of people. It's totally different than the guys who hand you the PKE meter, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, especially in California, folks. I don't know this for sure. Script could probably certainly speak more intelligently on this than I, but I have to imagine those people on those productions in California, where in California it's almost impossible for an individual to own a gun, okay, or it's very, very difficult. The people handling those weapons on a set are probably the crew bringing them in are FFLs, meaning, for those of you who don't know what that is, that's a federally firearm licensed individual. So if you go to a gun store and you go at a commercial gun store and you go buy a weapon, that is an FFL dealer. They have to be federally firearms licensed to sell you a pistol, a rifle, a shotgun, whatever. It doesn't matter. They're FFL. And they also have to have, generally speaking, the NRA is still the predominant training organization for all of these FFL people, even for police, SWAT, federal agencies. All the NRA does a lot of that kind of training. And you have to, I'd bet money that the people, it doesn't matter, and this is my point, really, if they're union or not, in that sense, in terms of their certification and their licensure, okay? They still have to meet the criteria. So it should have been, regardless if it was IATSE or non-IATSE, the person handling those weapons on the set as the prop master or the weapons master, whatever it is, probably still would have had to have had that proper licensing, especially in California, to even bring those weapons into the set and then distribute them to the actors accordingly. So the point is that regardless, they're either it was a tragic accident, like we said, where something was lodged in the barrel of the weapon, and when the next round was fired or the next blank was fired, it dislodged whatever projectile was trapped and struck the director of photography and the director, or there could have been some tragic negligence on the part of the weapons master, prop master, not inspecting that weapon, and the actors not inspecting that weapon themselves. We just don't know yet. But again, you'd have to have licensure to get that on the set.
Yeah, and as Cameron pointed out earlier, there's a lot of people that want to jump to certain like theories and conspiracies and stuff like that, and I get it. Alec is not a well-liked individual. But I guarantee you in this case, or at least I could almost guarantee you on his behalf, he had absolutely no idea what the fuck was going on. I guarantee you. Now, does that mean he's completely innocent of the situation? No, everybody's right. He should have checked it just as much as everybody else. But in the end of the day, he's not the one who's going to be found liable. I guarantee it'll probably
I don't know, because he's the producer, the main producer of the movie.
Well, that's different. Yeah. Here's the thing: is you have had incidences like this in the past, and I'll tell you right now that 9 times out of 10, it all boils down to safety precautions and who is in charge of the safety precautions. Just like you go back to the Vic Morrow situation, you go back to the one you were talking about earlier, Andre, with John Eric Hexum, and the one the one that we know most about is Brandon Lee. It all boils down to the individual who was in charge of the weapons, generally. Mm-hmm. In the Brandon Lee situation, and in the situation of like Vic Morrow and stuff, that was negligence on the part of just about everybody involved. But the main blame fell on those who were supposed to be in charge of the safety. And right. when again, the Vic Morrow was a situation where I think if you want to talk about the producers and the directors who were getting involved, that was where that thing drug on for years, because they were like trying to get to the bottom of that whole thing and who made the decisions and who actually had the ultimate decision. And that's the thing. So I highly doubt Baldwin, again, I could be wrong on it, but I highly doubt he's going to be held accountable in this situation.
I don't know, because I think that, of course, this is something that, depending on what happens, like here, a deal could be reached behind the scenes and it's all done within a month. Or it could be really, really ugly, and then it can be loads of finger pointing with the producer saying, "You prop master, you handed me this thing," and there's a point to that. And I, again, as I said before, yeah, it was Alec Baldwin that fired that particular gun. However, it might as well have been Travis Fimmel, who will also be firing guns in the movie, and it might have been Jensen Ackles. I submit it could have been either one of them in slightly different circumstances. But neither of them are the main producers of the movie. Alec Baldwin just so happens to be. Like, for instance, they went with a non-union. Apparently, this is rumors. This is not confirmed. It's probably true, since the people that are saying it are people that are within the industry. But that would actually be something that is within his domain. So here is not that he has the hat of an actor who had the misfortune of holding the gun which discharged either a real bullet or something was ejected that functioned that way. He's also the main producer of it. So he has two hats here, in which some blame can be attributed to
there
him.
will likely, as people are saying in the chat, and there's some super chats that effect, I think there likely will be a civil.
That's a plausibility.
Yeah,
That's
very
what I was
absolutely.
That's a
Yeah.
completely different
stipulate.
conversation, though, to a point, because
exactly that, Golgo, and that's what I was getting at. We have to
Golga, this
stipulate
is for those that are just
civil
listening,
versus
because you know some
criminal.
people are driving and running and what have you not. Golgo 13's Anime 101 says for $2. Odds. Not criminal, but civilly liable. Will settle. I believe that's
I agree
that's a
with that.
very
completely
likely.
different situation.
I don't think anybody's going to prison.
And here's the other
but
thing you
it's gonna be
have
a
is
suit.
on a set, and again, most cases is the director is the one who has the final say on most shit when it comes to set, no matter who's on the set, because that's just the way shit runs. And unless they can find a way where Alec was like, no, I want live rounds on this set, which is highly unlikely, then that's the situation we're looking at here. Again, because anytime that these kind of tragedies happened in the past that were non-gun related, if somebody was found liable, the only time that anybody who was not part of the actual safety precautions is the only time I think of, unless somebody else can bring one up in the chat that I'm not, was with Midnight Rider, the movie that never ended up getting finished about Greg Allman. And I believe the director was found liable for that accident. And what had happened was they were shooting a dream sequence. They did not have the permits to shoot this dream sequence on a train track with an actual train. And they had a bed cradled over the fucking train track, and the assistant director was killed.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was all the liability laid on the director for not having the proper permits.
And you're talking criminal or civil liability?
I believe this was a criminal situation. Otherwise,
okay.
It was always civil. Like, other than that, I even tried to do some research quickly before the show, and I couldn't find anywhere where a criminal case has been brought up in a lot of these situations. Now, when it comes down to fault, it's usually on the gun department, and it's usually just put up as an accident. Like, because these things, like you just said, it is so difficult to tell between certain rounds sometimes. So unfortunately, unless you're a specialist, you may not know exactly what the hell's going on sometimes. And there's a lot of commotion when you're shooting a lot of these scenes and shots. And from what I read, they asked for another shot. They had already shot one shot. So unless they switched out some gun or rounds, Alec would have had no reason to believe that it was going to go any different this time. That's all I'm saying on that part, because that's what it sounds like had happened. But if they were shooting it non-union, which that's the thing, this is a Netflix movie. We had been talking about already. Netflix already made a deal outside of IATSE. So I don't know how this is going to roll with that whole business. And I don't know the ins and outs of what deals they have and how that's a totally other situation. Now that's where I think the IATSE conversation comes into this, because if that's the case, then you're right. Then they will use this as a reason why IATSE is important, and it's just going to be used as another political fucking thing.
Well, and to be fair about something, I have issues at times with the unions industry. I have issues at times with my own union, the Writers Guild, and I've been very vocal about that to the enmity of many of my fellow writers. However, there is an incredible value to working with the people in the unions. They are more experienced. They've been through a lot of this journey. When I shot my short film Miriam, which people have been watching, it's on my YouTube channel, I paid a lot of money to get a union crew, right? A lot of money. Whereas all people because I was paying for that short film out of my pocket, and I saved money until I could afford a union crew for the entire shoot. Because I knew the level of professionalism. And when I did that, we didn't have guns on our shoot. We had a fake knife, a fake dagger, and we had a moment where an actor had to strangle another actor. And that moment was very I mean, I was so scared as a first-time director during that moment that anything could go wrong, and that person who's mimicking the strangling might actually injure the other actor. I had my stunt person there. I hired a very experienced stunt guy just for that moment, because I was like, I'll pay the money to make sure I don't injure an actor. That's how you have to think of this. And I waited 2 years to raise the money for my short film because I needed to have people at that level of union thing. I wouldn't have done it otherwise. People were like, man, you can make this with a bunch of friends. I was like, I could, I'm not going to.
Well, and people are bringing it up, and we brought this up earlier, but we're just, because people keep bringing it up. Yes, Alec Baldwin did put out a statement. So do you guys want to just read that, since people are bringing it up so much in the chat?
Yeah, let's do that. People are wanting to see it, so let's bring up Alec Baldwin's statement.
All right, I got both. Let me get to, I want one that's in the whole thing, because it's like split up over the tweets.
Yeah, he instead of like one, he posted like 2 separate.
Well, it was actually a statement
one
that was
and
put
two
out somewhere else originally first, it looks like, and then it was posted on Twitter. Says, there are no words to convey my shock and sadness regarding the tragic accident that took the life of Halyna Hutchins, a wife, mother, and deeply admired colleague of ours. I'm fully cooperating with the police investigation to address how this tragedy occurred, and this is where I'm having trouble finding the second half here. Hang on. Because the way it's broke up, it's really...
I think I got it.
The whole thing.
Yeah, if you can got the whole thing, go ahead, please.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I'll see if I can find it here. Because he broke it up in like a really weird way.
Well, it's because of Twitter. It's how it's.
I'll send I'll send you the link to it in the private chat here.
I have the whole statement. I think is on THR. I've got it here.
Yeah, go ahead, Valliant, please.
All right, Mr. Baldwin's statement on this quote. This is from the Hollywood Reporter again, folks. There are no words to convey my shock and sadness regarding the tragic accident that took the life of Halyna Hutchins, a wife, a mother, and a deeply admired colleague of ours. I'm fully cooperating with the police investigation to address how this tragedy occurred. I am in touch with her husband, offering my support to him and his family. My heart is broken for her husband, their son, and all who knew and loved Halyna. That's it.
Yeah,
that's bad from THR. So, like I said, I feel for this guy. I mean, I cannot imagine psychologically, emotionally, what he is going through right now.
Yeah, and someone in the chat, I won't name them, just said, I think everybody's overreacting to this, including Midnight Edge. And I responded saying, a woman died. This is an important time to have this conversation. If there's any time to have this conversation, it's now. And that's why we're trying to keep it on a serious and professional level and not about emotions and about politics and about people we like and dislike. So yeah, I don't think we're overreacting. In fact, I think this is one of the few channels that is treating it with the gravitas that it deserves. So.
And also, if I may add to that, it's actually really important to treat it with that gravitas, not just for the respect that is required since someone has actually lost their life here, but also in order to prevent the unnecessary politicization of it, because you can rest assured that this event is going to be taken advantage of and abused horrendously by all sides to further their preferred political agendas. And the way to counter that is actually by having these kinds of conversations.
Mm-hmm.
It is by highlighting that, yeah, something horrible happened here. And what the industry needs to do is find out exactly what happened. How could this happen? Was there something in routines that needs to be changed across the board to prevent this from happening again? Or were the routines already in place and they weren't followed? If that is the case, then someone needs to be liable for that. But what one can't do is basically just go and allow everyone to create and spin a narrative around this to try to further a certain cause. That is done more than enough already. So let us try to at least do what we can here to remain a level head. And if other people are going to politicize it, then at least let everyone watching here be inoculated against that and see through the game that is being played. So there's that side of it too.
Emotions are running wild, and I get it. And that's what happens when you have somebody like Alec, who is a very divisive figure. But that's where we need to step aside and forget that fact that is not the point here. The point is somebody died tragically. It didn't have to happen. And this is everything Andre just said is 100% what I was trying to get to earlier. Is like, this is a situation where we need to start asking the questions why it happened and how can we prevent it in the future? Because this is the same shit I said when that tragic accident happened on the set of Deadpool. I was like, how did this fucking happen? Especially nowadays when we have CGI. Like, I don't understand. Like, somebody needs to tell me. And I get it. A lot of people don't understand. And unfortunately, I may know more about this kind of a situation, sadly, because of the Brandon Lee tragedy than anything else. But that shouldn't be the case. I shouldn't have to be able to, quote unquote, understand how something like this could happen. That's the shitty part about it.
Because understand from a mechanical standpoint, not from an emotional standpoint, but from a mechanical standpoint.
Thank you, Valliant. Yes.
Yeah. What could go wrong? What steps could have been missed in this case? And this is the same thing, when if even the most experienced gun user out there, whether it's me or somebody way more experienced than I even am, you go to a shooting range. It doesn't matter if you are the world's most notorious assassin or the person who's just picked up a firearm for the first time. When you walk into that range master is God, okay? And you listen and you follow orders and you follow instructions, and it is that range master's duty to ensure the safety of everyone in that room. And if even the hint of misoperation or not following safety protocols by somebody in that range starts, that range master will weapons down, shut the range, and that person will be asked to leave, or the behavior will be corrected. And like you said before, like Cameron said, Tom said, on a set, that may have been happening on this set. The person who was in charge of this, let's call the prop master, weapon master, range master, maybe they were doing that. And maybe even through every safety protocol followed, this still happened. Because there's the possibility, as crazy as that sounds, but we just don't know yet, folks. We just don't have enough information yet. We're speculating right now what could have happened, how mechanically something could have failed in the process or something that wasn't followed. We're speculating on all the different possibilities, but we don't know. So don't go blaming people or, don't go pointing fingers or using it as an opportunity for, politics or whatever the case. Just, take a breath.
And again, with knowing that Mr. Baldwin is divisive and disliked, especially by a lot of people in the fandom that we address, I keep seeing a phrase popping up again and again in the chat, which is an inappropriate phrase as well. This is all karma. So, well, Helena didn't deserve any karma. I mean, whatever issues are with Baldwin is karma. I mean, this is a woman died. So you're saying, she gets to be the end of your philosophical karmic discussion of this man? Guys, be better than that. And I want to appreciate the vast majority of people in the chat who are being better than that. I know it's easy to snark about this, and because we are dehumanized through social media, we don't see each other as people. We see each other as letters on a screen, right? And the simple fact is, there's a lot of people that in Hollywood that I have thought I would dislike because of their attitude, their public persona, and their politics. And then I work with them, and they're perfectly gracious human beings on an individual level. And they feel the same towards me, because some people have heard of my things. And then they meet me and they're like, this is a really nice guy, right? And I've had people say to me like, man, I heard some stuff about your reputation. You're like this right-wing Muslim guy, but you're like a really decent human being, right? And we have to somehow in the 21st century retain that humanity, that this thing, this box is not people. The words on the screen are not people. Even the image they're presenting in Hollywood is not necessarily their humanity. And that's really hard in the world that we're in today. But maybe this is a moment, as a spiritual person, maybe God is giving us this moment to actually see if we can do that.
Yeah, exactly. And the end of the story is like everyone try to be respectful. I agree that if if there is some level of karma to this, then karma is well and truly a bitch because it affected someone who absolutely did not deserve it. There are many victims here, and however horrible it must be for Alec Baldwin, he's still the least victim compared to the one whose life is no longer there, and her child and husband and others that relied on it. So yeah, let's just try to keep it cool and just imagine this might very easily have been Jensen Ackles, and just imagine what if it had been Dave Chappelle or Chris Pratt or something. It could have happened. Now, Grant, and as Grip points out here, Baldwin is someone that has used guns infrequently before, so he is someone that should know their operation, which makes it all the more important to have a thorough investigation. But then we all need to step back and try to avoid overt or at least too much speculation, because I'm sure that in such a heavily publicized case like this, the truth will come out sooner or later, and probably they already know. I can't imagine much research being needed to figure out exactly what went wrong here. I mean, from a forensic point of view, this is should be fairly straightforward. So it's just a matter of waiting for them being ready to divulge the full story, and then we
You'll
can
have a medical report or a coroner's report soon.
Yeah.
And there are some people that are concerned that it's all going to get put under, what happened with Brandon Lee. It's all going to be water under the bridge. I don't think that's going to be the case here. I think this is too high profile at a different moment in history where everything is very political and there's too many eyes on this. So I think we will find out the truth of the situation in all of its complexity. And if there may be elements here that none of us are seeing, we don't know. We'll find out. I don't think this is going to be covered up in Hollywood. It's just not possible to them.
No, this is too big, way too big that any kind of cover up is possible here. It's gonna leak. There's too many people.
Differently than a lot of other ones is like, unlike the Crow situation and all the other tragedies we've had happen before, this is a situation where you actually have a very prolific individual who happened to be the one at fault here, right? Like it's gonna cause a big bunch of controversy. I've seen that already. We had this conversation before the show, and that's where I'm saying I've noticed the politicization of it already on both ends, in different ways, and not in so many different ways. And that's where it's like, can we just step back from the politics for 5 minutes on both sides? Because I'm seeing it from every angle, and just remember that it was a tragedy. Let's not judge the situation at hand right yet until we know everything that's gone on. You can dislike Alec all you want. I'm not even a big fan of him either. So like, that is what it is, but that has nothing to do with what happened. That's what we need to remember. It doesn't matter how we feel about Alec Baldwin right now. Like Andre keeps saying, put anybody else in that position. It's just one of those things right now.
Yeah, mentally substitute Chris Pratt, and then what happens?
Mm-hmm. So we just need to keep that in mind for now and wait until we know the facts. And I didn't even want to talk about this for this long, to be honest with you. So
yeah, but it's life and death, and it's we've had a lot of conversations about things that aren't important. They aren't that. This is very important.
Absolutely, and I'm not saying it's that in that sense. It's just that I've been sitting here for months saying this shit about a lot of this crap, where I've been saying these kind of accidents are going to happen, and that's what's bothering me about it right now, is because of this, and it's a tragic thing, and all involved, I'm sure, are feeling the most horrible they could ever feel today. And I just, it's just one of those things that this is the type of thing that happens in entertainment news that I really hate to discuss, right? This is the kind of thing that shouldn't be, because they did get I agree with the statement from from Brandon Lee's family. Nobody should die of a gunshot on a fucking movie set, right? Nobody should die of any accident on a movie set, period. Like, we're supposed to be playing pretend professionally. You know, that's what bothers me. And in a day and age with where we're at, I get it. I get everybody's questions. I get everybody's emotions on this, but that's where we need to step back and remember that emotions are high right now. And let's try to take the political things out of it. Let's try to take how we personally feel about Alec Baldwin out of it for the moment. Try to remember the families that are affected, and then ask the question, how can we go forward and make this better? Like, how can we change this to where it never happens again? That's the big questions that need to be asked next, I think. We also have a new guest joining us as well, don't we, Andre?
Yes, we do indeed.
It
is my pleasure to welcome
not
to
complain about us
proceedings
being men and only men.
Yeah, welcome, Reina Creole.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Kamran,
Good morning.
Valliant, Tom, Andre, chat. So glad to be here with you guys. I hear you're chatting about Alec Baldwin, I guess near the end of that.
Yeah, we were.
Well,
I think we were just about to leave the topic after urging much caution with jumping to conclusions and much warnings about politicizing this, and just try to keep a cool mind. And as I said, just mentally substitute Chris Pratt, because this is something that should have happened to anyone who is provided with a firearm that is a little bit more hot than was anticipated. Of course, granted now, Baldwin, he has extra responsibilities as the main producer of the movie, plus he's fired guns many times before. But again, we don't know what's happened here.
Correct.
What are your thoughts on this?
First of all, when I heard about it, extremely tragic. I am, for some people who don't know, I am a firearms owner. Matter of fact, Valliant and I have had this discussion. I actually, my favorite firearms, I have a 40 caliber and I have a 9mm pistol. One of the things that I was taught, or two things that I was taught by my firearms instructor. One, the best safety is your finger off the trigger. Two, always assume that firearm is loaded. Always. Whether you think it's empty, whether it's a live round in it, whether it's like a blank round in it. Because sometimes to simulate a misfire, I'll have like bullets and then one that's kind of like hollow, where it's, there's no gunpowder in it, but it simulates having the firearm get stuck. You have to, unjam it. Anytime you're dealing with firearms, it's special care needs to be taken. So I'm just kind of really disappointed. I mean, we don't know what happened, but there's something where you're between like the prop master, between if Alec was handling it and not taking it seriously, handling that, which could have been the thing. No matter what I feel about Alec Baldwin, frankly, he's the kind of guy where honestly I wouldn't piss on him if he was on fire. But that's neither here nor there. The thing that happened here is that it's a tragedy all around. A woman lost her life. Another guy had to get sent to the hospital. And it makes you wonder about the safety that's going on the set. Every prop master that I've ever interacted with, even the prop master on SG1, who I've had a lot of conversations with in the past, because just like, how do you keep people safe when you have like all these shots with all these weapons and everything? And he would, basically emphasize safety over and over and over. So my heart goes out to this woman's family, and I'm so sorry I can't remember her name. I know she was the cinematographer who was on the set, but I just really hope that they get down to the bottom of this to prevent it, from happening again. Because I think the last time I heard something like this happen, not with Brandon Lee, but with a guy named John Eric Hexum. I don't know if you guys remember.
Yeah, and that was what Andre was talking about earlier.
Yeah, we've brought him up 2 times independently of each other already, and the name of the tragic loss is Helena Hutchins. But yeah, we brought up Hexum, but yes, feel free, carry on.
Oh, that's the other thing that I was going to bring up. I remember hearing about that on when that happened. And of course, I was much younger then, but just realizing that, you know, a firearm, you still need to take caution with that, even if there are blanks, you know, that are in that. So it's tragic. Like I said, I hope they get down to the bottom of it. It's kind of too early to, you know, to judge, because not all the facts are out yet. And regardless of who you feel about Alec Baldwin, again, like Andre was saying, you know, imagine if it was Chris Pratt, imagine if it, you know, was someone else and this happened. You have to feel for the person. How does that, you know, feel when you're handling something and accidentally, you know, someone's life is taken, you know?
Well, and this is something, and again, I knew that this is not the only time. Like, I've got here's a few other times where these kind of things have happened. In Top Gun, a stunt pilot got killed in a plane crash. In Dark Knight, Conway Wycliffe died on the set during one of the car chase scenes. A specialist actor died in Madrid's Viaducto del Segovia. I can't even fucking say that right. Sorry. But he was a 21-year-old specialist who died jumping in a scene depicting suicide, of all things. There was 27 people killed filming The Messenger in the mountains, and the bodies were never found. Of course, then the stuntman in Deadpool 2. So yeah, like, that's just in recent years. Like, so again,
there are many stories like that.
and this is what I
Yeah.
was saying all this time, is these accidents happen, but unless somebody like Alec Baldwin's involved, we don't usually hear about it.
That is very true. Because
You know, and they didn't even include the one from that I brought up earlier from Midnight Rider. That's not even.
And also, there was the woman who lost her arm in Resident Evil.
Yes.
One of, like, the stunt doubles there, and one of William Shatner's stunt doubles, and I think it was T.J. Hooker, ended up in a wheelchair for life. So I mean, there's so many that we've never even hear about.
Stunts is a dangerous business, and Kamran knows. I've talked to like many stunt people in Hollywood where they would tell me, you know, things that happen on the set, accidents that, you know, that have happened, you know, on the set. That risk is, you know, is part of the job. Yeah, they understand that it is, you know, it is part of the job. Even when you try to put through every safety safeguard, but sometimes
look, on Batwoman, we forget just Batwoman last year. Someone was paralyzed on the set, right? And so I mean that's not a paralyzed for life, a young person, right? So.
No, and there's a bunch that this list is missing here as well that I know, and people bringing it up in the chat, like the Bond one. There was one that somebody died in a ski accident. Yeah, that's the thing is, again, we got to remember that this is something that has happened one too many times. That's where I'm coming from emotionally. We got to try and do our best to keep our emotions in check right now, especially when it comes to the political stuff. To try and remember that part. But we're trying to keep everybody as civil in the chat as we can, guys. So please remember to be respectful of others.
Absolutely.
But we do have some super chats, Andre. We should really try to.
Yes, we do. Give me 1 second here to refresh.
Well, while you're doing that, we have a couple I can bring up on screen.
Do that in the meantime.
King Gabrielle brings up that Daniel Radcliffe's stunt double from Harry Potter evidently was either injured or killed. That's one I never even heard about.
How old was he?
I can imagine that one.
I hope he was over 18 at least, but still, that's freaking tragic.
Right?
That's a young stunt double.
Yeah. And then we have Stitches Loft, who sent in $10. Thank you so much. Says, always treat a firearm as it's loaded. Never point a firearm at anything you do not intend to shoot. You never put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Stargate forever. And this is so true, Stitches Loft, and I'm not defending Alec in this case. I'm just saying in the defense of any actor who has had to do this before, when you're shooting the scene that the type of scene that they probably speculatively had to be shooting, that's probably why it was aimed directly at the cinematographer and the director. It was just, in most cases, you generally wouldn't be shooting, you would be shooting off screen at nothing, right? Like that's generally the case. They like to have it be. Unless you have to have it in shot. You were going to say something, Cameron. Go ahead.
Yeah. Do we remember Pulp Fiction, that pivotal moment, where the two assassins, they got these college kids that they're coming to rough up, and then one of them takes a shot at at Samuel L. Jackson, and then they just both pull up their guns and point right at the camera, right?
Yeah, it's like after he exactly that. Yeah, that's exactly that's how you would do it. It's any poster. For instance, when you have like a poster where James Bond or whoever you see like them pointing.
Well, there you go. There's the famous one.
The
famous one, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. James Bond, like when he's like in the intro sequels through the gun battle, right there. That's the Bond actor literally shooting straight at the camera. And who's behind the camera? Is a camera operator. It's the director. It's a DP, and every single one of them is going to be in the line of fire. Now, to be clear, no one here is actually defending Alec Baldwin, because we're saying is reserve judgment till we know more. We don't have enough information here. And Alec Baldwin, again, he's done this before. He's someone that should be in a position that he should be able to recognize live round, if indeed that is what happened, which we don't know. And also, he has extra responsibility as the lead producer here, but still reserve judgment till we know more.
Cameron, you were saying, sorry.
Yeah, let me add this. So, when I talk about Sleeper Cell, I'll give you the incident of one of the actors had never handled a gun before and got really gun happy, and I had to have a talking to in front of the whole crew, right? But there was another actor that had handled guns before in a real way. One of our stars was Oded Fair, who had been in the Israeli army, right? He'd been in the IDF, and he had been sent to Gaza. And Oded and I became very close friends. People were like, wow, you're a Muslim guy, pro-Palestinian, you're close friends with it. And Oded had actually had some really horrific experiences in Gaza and had left the country after what he had to do in a military situation. It haunted him. And he was very anti-gun in a personal, and that wasn't an ideological thing. He had fired guns, he had killed people, right? And it stayed with him. And but he had to use guns on our set because he's the head terrorist of our show, right? And there was no one I found more serious and more careful around guns than this experienced professional who had actually used guns in a real life military setting, right? And had actually had to shoot people. Well, I don't know if he had killed anyone. Forgive me, Oded, if you're watching. So I never killed anybody. I know you were in a military situation. So, and he had to carry those weapons. But
he treated them with responsibility.
He treated them with responsibility. And it was different than the other actors who were like, oh, wow. They were like, they thought they were doing
a toy.
Pew, pew. I was like, this ain't pew pew. This ain't pew pew. This is real, right? Even if you've been told there's nothing in it, you assume that that it's loaded and it will kill people. But I never had to say that to Oded. The moment he was done with a gun, he got rid of it professionally, and he was away from it. Because to him, it was just like something that was a memory of something he didn't want to remember,
right.
But he knew how to handle it, right? And that's the difference. And so, again, part of what we will have to see, Mr. Baldwin has been an actor for decades, and he's been an actor in a lot of action movies. He's played Jack Ryan. He's in all kinds of things, right? He knows guns, and he's a producer on the show. So we're going to find out exactly what happened here, because
I feel it's like a lot of a negligence on a lot of people's parts. Let's be real. I don't think there's any nefariousness going on here. That's the thing that I think really needs to be kind of. Let's not go to that place yet.
There's a great saying. I do not recall exactly who said it, but it was someone extremely clever, like Arthur C. Clarke or something. And that saying is, never attribute to malice what can be explained by incompetence.
Thank you. Yeah. And Wild Man Beyond says, who remembers the Twilight Zone movie incident? Yeah, we brought it up a few times actually. But yeah, it was a very tragic, and it went on for a long time in the courts, and a lot of people, and there was a lot of stupidity involved in that situation. And it's one of the reasons why I don't watch that movie very often. I've only seen it maybe twice in my entire life. But thank you for the $4.99, Wild Man Beyond. But yeah, that was one of the more stupid tragedies of Hollywood history. Callum Lyle, thank you so much for the $2 from Australia. Says, wasn't there also a movie with over 30 big cats? I can't remember the name of it. Isn't like there's been a couple movies shot with a bunch of cats.
Like cats?
Like no, but I mean, I think he's talking like lions and tigers and cougars and shit like that. And there was the what's her face family who had shot that documentary in their home where they had all those big cats.
Talking about like Tiger King and stuff like that.
That kind of a situation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Tatum O'Neal. It was not Tatum. No, was it Tatum O'Neal or was it? No, the other one I'm thinking of.
Channing Tatum.
No. Anyway, I know the movie you're talking about, Callum, and I cannot think of it offhand. But yeah, there was a couple of them. There was that one, and then there was another one that they shot there's been plenty of movies where they shoot with, well, here's a story I heard from Clint Howard. Here's where they actually will have real guns on the set. Like when he shot Gentle Ben, they didn't give a shit, he said, when it dealt with the bear. He's like, they let that bear drag me around all goddamn day. They didn't seem to care. But as soon as they had like a cougar or something like that for like a sequence where Ben would fight like a cougar, they would have the guys out there, the sharpshooters with guns, in case the cougar decided it was going to go after somebody. Wow. So there's even a situation where you will have, a situation like that. I'm trying to remember the movie. I think it was like Born Free or something like that. It was called.
I'm a big fan of these Discovery Plus reality shows like Expedition Unknown and things like that, where they're sending out people on these adventures and looking at ancient mysteries and things like that. And what's rarely seen, in fact, I don't think I've ever shown it on camera, but they've talked about it, is that on that crew, they're going to have weapons experts because they're out in the jungles of Africa or the jungles of Brazil, the Amazon, and there's deadly animals there. And so on reality shows, they're armed and they have serious professionals who deal with that.
And Roar is the name of the movie, yes. And then Melanie Griffith was the other person I was trying to think of. Yeah, she was raised around big cats, and they shot a documentary. And Born Free is the other one. Yes, that's right. Roar and Born Free. Thank you. Yes, because I have the soundtrack to Born Free, sadly.
Yeah. And speaking of animals and set and stunts gone wrong and accidents and everything, I just have to bring up the story from the first day of shooting the original Conan the Barbarian. And the first scene that Arnold Schwarzenegger was filming was the scene where he's running from the wolves. And for this scene, director John Milius, he wanted dogs that really looked like wolves, so he got like German Shepherds with wolf in them. And then Schwarzenegger was basically explaining, okay, here's your direction for the scene. You get a 30-second head start, and then we're going to let go of the dogs. They're going to come chase you, and they're hungry, and they're going to attack you. So you better reach that stone over there before them. Okay, go. And that's exactly what happened. And the dogs actually, they overtook him. They attacked him.
Wow.
And then the trainer, he like really shouted the keyword and they let him go. But Schwarzenegger, he got cut up a little bit and stuff like that. And again, that's something that's not supposed to happen. And of course, director being John Milius, he simply told Schwarzenegger that, there you go. Now you know what you're in for the next 2 months.
My favorite one from that is the bird story. The bird story when he's up on the thing and he eats the bird.
Yeah, that is a classic too. So I
That's a real fucking bird.
He had to work for that.
Well, and people don't remember this, but I do remember reading this back when it came out. I believe it was Phantom Menace. It could have been Attack of the Clones, but it was one of the Star Wars prequels. I think it was Phantom Menace, where there was an explosion on set, and Natalie Portman apparently got some shrapnel in her eye, right? And immediately the person in charge of of the explosives was let go. I mean, Lucas talked about that in an interview. He let that person go immediately because obviously you're not doing your job if there's even the slightest scratch or cut to anyone.
Yeah, and it's not great for Natalie Portman if something hits her eye. Let's put it that way. So yeah. It only goes to show that. And if you just go back in like way back when in the history of Hollywood and stuff, like the history of stunts, that's a pretty sordid history. I mean, like a while back, we had a watch party on Midnight Edge Espanol where we were watching the original Zorro from 1920.
Yeah.
And the stunts there, I mean, that's some legit parkour, and it's sick. And if something went wrong there, you might very well end up in a wheelchair. So
that, or just look at stuff like the Three Stooges
have gotten better. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, or even look at the shit like the Three Stooges did and stuff. A lot of that stuff was real. That they like. You can't fake some of that shit.
The most famous one is Buster Keaton.
Buster Keaton as well.
All of his stunts, and they were crazy stunts. It would be like, this was what 1919.
He was Jackie Chan before Jackie Chan.
He was Jackie Chan. Get out of the way.
He was definitely that. But I love what Maestro Shi. Yes. For those who may not know much about John Milius, if you've ever seen the movie The Big Lebowski, John Goodman's character is loosely based on John Milius. That is no joke.
And he was so good in that.
He was awesome in that.
Marty Zero, this is not Nam. There are rules.
I I was not really into that movie. Someone said, "Oh, well, maybe you should check it out." I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna be freaking bored." I like seeing Jeff Bridges, but as soon as he said that line, I'm like, "Okay, I'm into this."
Donnie, you're out of your element.
He was awesome.
It is a show dog. It has papers.
But let's get back to these super chats because we have a few more here, and let's continue with those we can bring up on screen.
No,
Before
but we did need a little levity
classics.
there. We definitely did the tension.
Yeah, we did. We did.
Yeah,
need
yeah.
some levity.
No, look, otherwise we're all going to go crazy. I mean, this is
Exactly. I mean,
we have to balance life and move forward.
as the West collapses around, you still got to laugh. So yeah. Kenneth Laroque it says for $5 Canadian. Hey all, hope everyone is well.
Doing the
And
best.
yeah, so do we. Hope everyone is doing good out there. And Naked Fame says for $5, I've done roofing, driven moving vans, been a scuba diver, and dozens of other things. Rule 1: take it seriously. People die. Not the game. Safety first. Words to live by.
Yeah.
Like literally, words to live by.
Mm-hmm.
No, and that's just it. It seems like this happened later in the day, so it probably was. People just, again, you got to be alert 24/7, and we don't know all the facts yet, but I got to imagine that's just possibly part of the case was that it was just because, from what I read, it was like they were going to do another take of something they'd already done a couple times before, and that's why they didn't. There was no reason to suspect, but you always treat every time you're dealing with weapons and things of that sort and stunts, they have to be treated very, 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 very seriously.
Indeed. Then we have T Neil 89 who has a question about that big cat movie you were talking about.
Yes.
This cat movie, Roar.
That's
Red
one of
Letter
them.
Media watched it with Macaulay Culkin, which is how I know it.
Yeah, there's that one, and then there's Born Free. Yeah, we just established that. But yes, thank you for that.
Yeah.
That was one of them. But yeah, those came out pretty close to each other, actually.
Yeah. And Paul Harley also points out that Sandal Bergman also injured her hand during the filming of Conan the Barbarian.
Well, there was a lot of injuries, wasn't there?
Yeah, she got cut off. A part of her finger was cut off in a sword fight.
Gosh.
Yeah, and then there was then there was also on Friday the 13th where the guy playing Jason in the fourth one, I can't remember his name, but he almost lost his finger too. In the scene where because Corey Feldman swung, or no, it wasn't Corey, it was the female actress who was playing his older sister, swung the machete and hit his finger and damn near split it. And when he went into they didn't have time to take his makeup off, so he went into the hospital with his Jason makeup on. And at first they weren't sure what they were supposed to treat. He's like, no, it was my finger.
It's not my face with all the. They're like, oh my God, this guy looked like
because it looked like he had a big machete hack in his head. Ted White, thank you, Mondo. Yeah, it was Ted White.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
And
why do they have a machete with a sharp blade on that set?
That's again where you come into these situations where you'll have the rubber blade or the plastic blade, and you'll have the real blade, and sometimes they look so much alike you can't tell. Sometimes it's just when you're doing a close-up shot, they'll use a real blade just because you can tell when in a close-up. There's been a couple other stories where I've heard where that's a situation where, same thing with Freddie, like Robert Englund always had to be very careful which glove he was putting on because there was two different gloves, but they were both made of metal. One was sharp, one wasn't. So you had to be sure which one he was using.
For the sharp. Unless there's a specific thing that you need to cut.
Well, that's the thing is Freddie was always, doing stuff with the claws. So they would have
cut through something, whatever.
Yeah. So they'd have a couple different versions. And a lot of times it was up to him to be making sure which one he had, even though normally that would be a prop person or a safety person's deal. But since the Nightmare on Elm Street films were shot pretty much like independent films, they just handled a lot of that shit on their own. But again, he said that there was a lot of times he had to make sure he was not using the wrong blades or he could seriously fucking injure somebody, including himself.
But that goes back to the point earlier about the end user, whether it was Robert Englund or in this case, Alec Baldwin, ultimately that actor should take personal responsibility to make sure, since they're the one that's going to actually physically be manipulating, whether it's a pistol or a revolver or Freddie's glove, that they have the right prop for that shot that they have personally taken, even though it may not be their responsibility, that they have personally taken that extra layer of responsibility themselves to make sure that they are, that they're handling what they're supposed to be handling at that point.
Which is why I lectured my actor on Sleeper Cell, because I wanted to convey to him, this is in your hand. You can't play with this. You can't think, well, if something goes off, it's going to be, the Showtime's liability. This is life and death in your hands.
Yeah, and I see people bring up like Road Warrior 2. Oh yeah, on the Mad Max movies, a lot of people got hurt and worse. Like those movies were shot very off the cuff.
That was fast and loose for sure, just like the movie.
Yeah, Tennille says John Landis accident is probably still the worst. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Yeah, and then Callum Lyle threw in another $5. Thank you so much. Says off topic, Lorena and Cameron, how long do you think Kevin Smith's career will last? And he damned his daughter when he swore he wasn't lying on her life.
Yeah, I think that you don't say stuff like that. I mean,
yeah, you should never say shit like that.
No.
Even if you're confident, like
even if you genuinely believe it, even if you are in the right, don't say stuff like that anyway. Just like a sign of respect.
Yeah,
don't
say the quiet part out loud.
Like kind of like the whole Alec Baldwin thing. Like, I mean, there was a lot of people bringing up a tweet from 2017 this morning and last night. It's like, I get it. It's a dumb thing to say, right?
Look, you all have stupid tweets.
So do I. I have a lot of stupid tweets.
We all have something that can be used against us.
In fact, I've made sure almost every one of my tweets was stupid.
So, I mean, look, just remember something. We're talking about guns here. We're talking about Westerns. Remember one of the greatest Westerns of all time, Unforgiven. And Clint Eastwood's, I mean, there's line upon line that's pure brilliant screenwriting. But the line when that kid finally, kills the guy that he had the bounty on, and then he's overwhelmed by killing him, and he's trying to convince himself he did the right thing. He said, well, he had it coming. And Clint Eastwood simply says, we all have it coming. That's the truth.
Yeah.
We all have it coming. That's the moment here that we have to remember. This thing is coming for all of us, and we can sit in this moment, and I'm as guilty of it as everyone else, to feel powerful and judgmental towards others. But we all have it coming, man. And so there's more than enough people out there in each of our lives that sees us as an enemy and sees us as a bad person. So let's try in these moments to remember our humanity.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring up Unforgiven, because that was a movie that that Valliant and I were talking about before, where Clint Eastwood used live rounds on the set in several incidences. So there you go, another movie where they did, because there was parts where he was like, like those you were telling me, Valliant, specifically the part where he's shooting the cans or whatever.
Yeah, when he was target practicing in the beginning, right after the kid comes and says, hey, join me. And he's like, boy, I haven't shot this gun in 10 years. So he pulls out the pistol and he can't hit anything. And then he gets the rifle out and blam, blam. And he shoots those glass bottles and cans. And it's like, well, that's a perfect situation where you absolutely would use live ammunition on a set, because you can create that scene in camera for literally a few pennies worth of live rounds, and you can be perfectly safe with it, and you're done, as opposed to having to do some radical, elaborate
setting up squibs and all that shit.
Yeah, I mean,
exactly. And that brings perfectly up the super chat from Meredith G, who says for $5, this incident brings up the issue of practical effects versus CG. You could remove all risk with firearms at high cost, but that isn't unlikely. Well, here's the thing, though, that, you could do it, but as Valliant said, you could replace everything with CGI, but, like, for instance, that scene he was talking about there in Unforgiven, that's a perfect example of a scene where using a legit gun with real live rounds, honestly, is going to produce the best results. And also in other scenes like that, for instance, when shooting a revolver or even a pistol, there's always some level of recoil. And if you're just going to CGI the entire shot, audience are going to be able to tell. It's going to completely break the illusion.
Yeah.
Completely.
I mean, look, you think about it. People who just, the average Joe, you, me, Lorena, anybody, we go out, we go to a range, we go out on some property, take out a rifle or a pistol, we start shooting. I mean, these days, what is everybody doing? Pick their cell phones. You're going to record it while you're doing it or something, just so you can kind of see your form. And it's the same thing in a movie. I'm shooting live rounds and I'm recording it. And you can be perfectly 100% safe doing that, provided you're just shooting it targets. We're
Right.
not talking about shooting at other people on set. We're
Right.
talking about shooting at targets. And you can do it in a very safe way and record it. And I'm sure they still do this frequently in Hollywood in a very safe way.
I'm sure things will change after this. I mean, I'm sure a lot of precautions were put into place after Brandon Lee. And now this is a situation where, from here on out, they'll probably set the camera up, let it run. And if there's an actor that has to shoot towards camera and get everybody out of the fucking way. That's what should have been done any goddamn way, to be honest with you.
Right.
Patrick Mulligan says, saw Dune, mixed feelings, sound mixing was awful. Now, I got to say this, Patrick. I don't know. Maybe the theater you saw it in had their sound screwed up, because everybody I've talked to agrees that this is one of the best sounding movies ever. Like, and the sound design and the sound mix. So perhaps the theater you saw it in might have had the sound screwed up. Otherwise, it's just a personal subjective thing, and that could be, but I don't know. I've not heard anybody else ever say they've had a problem with the sound on this one.
Yeah, I tried watching it last night. I was just exhausted, so I could.
Oh, you're watching it on HBO Max.
I'm watching it I'm watching it on HBO Max. But what I did see and what I did hear, I mean, sounded pretty good to me.
Yeah, so maybe try watching it on HBO Max or seeing it in a different screen, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. But also, we only have Kamran.
We do, and we do have a couple of questions for
Let's
him.
take a break in the super chats.
Christian Corleo asked, did we get our question to Cameron yet? No, probably not, because we're in the middle of super
No,
chats,
we didn't. So okay, let's find that real quick. But I have another topic for Kamran. But I'm going to see if I can find if I can't find that super chat from Christian Coralejo. I got it right here. Christian Coralejo wonders for $5. Kamran, with all the drama like Bob versus Disney and Depp/Heard court drama, is any of it worth writing a script about, and what would be the titles?
I think you may have asked this question as well on a previous super chat, maybe on Toxic Feminine. I didn't have time for it, so I'm glad you came back for this. Well, definitely, I think Hollywood's internal politics is more interesting than some of the dramas that we're seeing on television right now. It's a lot more of a blood sport, and especially the things that we're seeing with Bob Chapek, and he really is, with each step, I think he's proving himself to be one of the most dangerous people this town has ever.
That's what I want to talk about, like for the last 10 minutes you have here.
Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, I think that a movie would actually be interesting. We've had movies talking about how crazy Hollywood is, but they're each of a different era. We had the Player, which reflects sort of the power of studio heads, right? And then we had Bowfinger, which is one of my favorite comedies with Steve Martin, which reflects the craziness of the independent film world. And I've met all those weirdo characters that are in Bowfinger. They're all archetypes of real people that I've met. And I think now we're going to have this new phase of a Hollywood civil war, which we haven't seen before. Before it was just, it's a new cultural thing. So I think a movie about this would be fun, and it would be hard to believe at times. It could be like the Social Network or whatever for Hollywood. I don't know about the right title for that, but I think that a day will come, probably some years down the line, when all this is settled, where we're going to have certainly tell-all books are going to come out, and some of them might be turned into movies.
Very cool. And Kamran, for the minutes that we have you left, really, we should have had like half an hour on this, but let's breeze through it. What has happened in this last week? And I thought this was really interesting. This may be related to the possible IATSE strike. We do not know the details, so I want to hear your thoughts on it. But what has happened is that every single MCU movie, with the exception of Sony's Spider-Man No Way Home and Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3, which hasn't even started shooting yet, those two will keep their release dates. Everything else has been pushed back. Same with Eternals, which is that's also coming in the last few weeks here. But everything other than that, from Doctor Strange to I don't even remember what else there is. But it's been pushed back, but only by a few months. So there's nothing dramatic. Mm-hmm. But then there's Indiana Jones, which is pushed back by a full year. And this comes shortly after the rumors made public by our good friend Doomcock about how the new Indiana Jones movie seemingly seeks to do time travel shenanigans and replace the original Indiana Jones with another Kathleen Kennedy self-insert.
Yeah.
And we have heard rumors independently of Doomcock that support this. So we're working on a video about it, but what's going on?
Well, you've laid out the summary of what's happening. Since I only have a couple weeks, I actually have to head over to our friend Unsafe Space at Kerry Smith. But people stick around here, watch Unsafe Space afterwards. But you know what? I've written a very lengthy piece, which I think Valliant saw, that I wrote on my Patreon about this, about my opinions of what's happening here, and I think Valliant may agree with it, but I won't want to speak for him. My view is that everything that we've witnessed for the last few days, particularly with regard to Indiana Jones, has been in motion for quite some time. I personally believe, I'm not getting this from someone calling me and telling me it's happening, just my intuition watching it, is that Bob Chapek set this in motion weeks ago. I believe that Bob Chapek decided once he settled with Kathleen Kennedy this summer as to how she would move on without creating any drama, that she would get out of Star Wars. She's like, well, I'm going to do Indiana Jones. And I knew at the time people said, well, she's going to ruin Indiana Jones. I'm like, well, if you average person watching YouTube knows she's going to ruin Indiana Jones, you don't think the CEO of Disney knows she's going to ruin Indiana Jones? And do you think he's going to actually let her do that? And so knowing how Machiavellian and how forward-thinking Mr. Chapek is, I personally think he did a Sun Tzu. I think he said to her, yeah, sure, we'll have you leave Star Wars, and your settlement is you'll get to do whatever you want in Indiana Jones. And then he was waiting to subvert her the whole time to make sure that she didn't ruin Indiana Jones and get him fired by the shareholders for ruining another billion-dollar franchise. And so I believe that when we started seeing the rumors leaking out to our friend Doomcock, and then it was published in the Daily Mail, major UK newspaper, that confirming Doomcock's rumors that it appears to be a time travel movie, which indicates it's likely that we'll meet young Indy in CGI, and Doomcock rumors are that Indy will die and be replaced by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and that seems.
And not only will he will die in the past, so that the original trilogy of movies will never have happened.
Correct,
and then presumably that will be remade for Disney Plus. With Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
That was certainly Kathleen. I certainly can believe that Kathleen Kennedy would want to erase Indiana Jones together and have Phoebe Waller-Bridge be the one that gets the Ark of the Covenant, right? But I also know that that's crazy, and Bob Chapek knows that that's crazy, and he also knows what she's done to Star Wars under his predecessor's incompetent management, and so now he's not going to let that be his sinking ship. So I was like, if I were him, I would leak out to the world this storyline so that the audience reaction would be so extreme to it that he would be able, again, to go to Kathleen Kennedy and say, I'm sorry, look, people don't seem to like this. I think we need to rework this. And then perfectly, the fear of a Yahtzee strike gives perfect timing for him to pull the plug, which is what he's done. There's no reason to delay this film for 1 year. Unlike, the other Marvel films are delayed for a few weeks. This is for a full year into 2023, unless you are starting over. That's enough time to write a new script and to film the whole damn thing. And if, God forbid, Harrison Ford is unhealthy and unable to continue on, it gives him the time to see where Harrison Ford's health and future is, and if necessary, to pull the plug altogether on this crazy idea. I've stated that on my Patreon. If anyone who wants to see that, I wrote a very detailed article about why I believe this leak was from Chapek's office, because it's what I said on Midnight's Edge back in February, that Chapek is going to have to use the media to fight Kathleen Kennedy back in the days of Gina Carano's firing, and he did. We suddenly saw Forbes come out with these internal leaks. And if you notice, all these leaks that are happening are at newspapers and media outlets that are not considered part of the Hollywood club. Forbes, The Atlantic, and now Daily Mail. They're not coming through the trades. And so this is strategically being done by Chapek to put it out. He's basically, in my view, hitting his adversaries from places they're not able to see coming. No one could have predicted, Kathleen Kennedy could have predicted that the Daily Mail would upset her cart. If it had been somebody at Deadline or Variety that was about to release it, she would have called and said to that person or the editor, don't put that out there. She doesn't have that kind of power over the Daily Mail, right? So I believe Bob Chapek set this in motion, and the intention is something I predicted on Midnight's Edge 2 weeks ago, which sounded crazy 2 weeks ago, that his intention is either completely redo this movie with a new story that won't be offensive to the fans, or kill it. And 2 weeks ago, it sounded crazy that he would have any ability to do that with the probably well over $100 million that's already been invested in the production of this Indiana Jones movie. And I said, I remember I said this here on Midnight Chat. I said,
"Oh yeah, I have the clip. We'll put it to good
my
use."
Guts, like, it doesn't feel right. I'm like, why would he ruin his career and let?
I even zoomed in on you like this.
He won't let her do this, and it sounded crazy. And here we are 2 weeks later in crazy Twilight Zone, where the movie has been delayed for a full year, allowing everything I said 2 weeks ago to come true. So I don't know that this movie will, I said this 2 weeks ago, I don't know that this movie will ever be released, especially with 1 year with with Harrison Ford's advanced age. I don't know that this movie will come out in 2003. God forbid anything happens to Harrison Ford, or just a situation in the world or the Hollywood, whatever worsens. People 2 weeks ago could not imagine this movie being delayed a year. 6 months from now, if the word comes out that the movie's been pulled from the schedule altogether, or gets a Rian Johnson type, one day, inshallah, God willing, you'll get your trilogy, one day this will be released. That's not an implausible thing now. It sounded crazy 2 weeks ago. Now it's a perfectly rational possible outcome of this. So either you're going to get a movie that works, that we're not going to hate, or this movie's never going to happen. And I stick to that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, again, I'm glad we recorded it, because we can put that seemingly lofty prediction to good use.
It's all good. It's all good. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank everyone here for letting me be on. I have to hop off to Unsafe Space now, but please, everyone, stay here. This is a very important conversation we're having here, and please hit the like button. I think we have well over 1,600 people watching, and I think half that of the likes. And I think this is one of the most important conversations we've had on Midnight's Edge. So please support the channel. And Valliant, I'll see you soon. Lorena, I will see you soon. And thank you all for your patience, and Andre and Tom, thank you for your hospitality and having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us and sharing your insights on this most unusual of topics and days. Right. And also, everyone, be sure to support Kamran on Patreon. And the link for that is, as always, in the description. It's one of the best Patreons that you will be able to find, with legit industry insights. So do check that out.
Please do. We're doing really well. We're well over 100 subscribers in just a few weeks, and it's the momentum's increasing, and I'm having fun on it. I'm really interacting with people on my Patreon. Some of the higher level Patreons and people are subscribing at that level, are get personal conversations with me on a monthly level, and even discount on screenwriting, consulting, and all that stuff. So, but even if you're at the simplest level, you're getting generally weekly fun articles that I have stuff in detail that I can't go on to necessarily in public videos. So everyone, please join me. And I got to go. God bless everyone, and we'll talk soon.
See you, Cameron.
Take care.
Take care. Take care. And Lorena, I believe that you also only had very limited time left to be here. So everyone, smash that like for Lorena.
Thank you. I'm getting paged in Microsoft Teams right now. But thanks so much for having me on. So glad I could drop in even for a little while to chat with you guys, and and hang out and talk. So folks, thanks so much for coming. And as for me, I just have my Welcome to Florida show on Monday at 8 p.m., the usual crazy Florida-ness, and also Tuesday 5 p.m. Tom Conkle will be mine and Fat Steven's guest on the After School Special show. So please do go and check that out. So, gentlemen, I'll see you later. Take care.
Bye, Lorena.
Everyone have a great weekend. Bye, guys.
Excellent. Take care. And before we move on, I wanted to address a comment here. Snail Messiah wonders, can I send Andre a Danish news article? I do not know which one you're referring to, but yes, absolutely. You can send me a Danish article. I can read Danish just fine. Just don't ask me to speak it, or not, at least not not when I'm sober. If I'm completely drunk, of course, then I'm fluent in Danish.
And you can send me send me a Danish period as an I'll take that.
But yeah, feel free to send me a Danish news article. I have no idea what is in it, but absolutely feel free to send it. And Valliant, we have you for a while longer.
Yeah, I've got a bit, and I know you want to get back to Super Chats. Just real quick on the Kennedy thing, Cameron and I had that discussion earlier this week, did like an hour together talking about these delays, talking about the implications, and he was talking about some of the stuff there. We went into more depth, but I want to add to this, you look at the timing. We've been talking about this for months. Will she or will she not be renewed? The last time we saw anything, and I brought this up on Twitter the other day, I said, the timing of all this is strange. The fact that Indiana Jones itself was singled out. I mean, they announced a rollback of the entire MCU slate, which, with the exception of Guardians, you can mostly understand because those movies are generally written to be sequential. So you push one back, you push them all back, and those pushbacks were a couple of months, like we said. There's no other Disney movie out there. And it's not like they're just working on MCU and Indiana Jones. They've got a lot of other projects in the till, and not just animated projects, right? Indiana Jones is singled out, and it's given a 1-year kickback. And this is, pushing it all the way to June or July of 2023. We also, at the same time, we know Kennedy's coming up on her contract renewal. Back in 2018, September 28th, she or one of her acolytes leaks to Deadline magazine, who published the article that Kennedy was being renewed. Now, her contract was up on the 30th of October. We are 8 days away from the 30th of October now. We have not heard a peep. We have not had a leak. We have had nothing. The last couple of times her contracts were renewed, we knew a month or more in advance. And then this news drops about Indy 5 being pushed back. It's, I'm not saying it's definitely one way or the other, but I'm saying it's starting to get a little funny. It's too many coincidences piling up to just ignore it and cast it off. If they had announced the entire slate, everything Disney was doing, every movie, live action at least, was being pushed back, you could chalk it up to something more academic, but this just strikes me as being odd. And we've not heard anything yet. In fact, nobody's really heard much of anything from Kathleen Kennedy in forever. And I mean, not even since, was it Marsha Lucas a month ago, basically just dumps on her in the media about Star Wars. So it's just too strange.
Yeah, I agree, because it's that one movie. It is that one movie. And I am of the opinion that that Kamran is right about this, that Chapek, he was just playing along, playing nice until he was able to resolve the Kevin Feige situation, so he avoids a war on multiple fronts and those two allying, because they don't like each other to begin with. And now, when, exactly as Kamran has said, when he has, at least for the moment, gotten Kevin Feige off the board by winning in the Scarlett Johansson thing, now he can refocus back on Kennedy and preventing what he had already promised her, by way of giving her enough rope to hang herself with, by simply leaking out exactly what she is doing, and then having the pressure from the media and investors to fall behind and say, look, this is simply what we got to do. I think it's as simple as that. Just outmaneuvered her.
Yeah, there's only two people that could have made this call to push Indy back like this. You would think number one would be Kathleen Kennedy, and I seriously doubt she would have done it.
Yeah, no way.
6 months into production, or 4 months into principal photography at this point, with or without having Harrison Ford there for 3 of those months. Or number two, it would have been somebody like Alan Bergman or Bob Chapek. That's it. It either had to come from Kennedy or somebody above her. Well, there's not that many people above her. There's only 2 with that power, Bergman and Chapek. So I just do the math. Look, Disney, like many studios, they'll do strategic leaks, just like we saw. Y'all were talking earlier this week about the Eternals, and I won't leak it. I'm not going to spoil anything. But, you had that leak about a certain individual being involved in the movie as a certain character. That was a post-credit scene. They leaked that out. Why? They want to get more buzz around the movie. Well, conversely, these studios will leak information or do things like this, like we're seeing with Indy, to have a different effect. So strategic leaks, folks, they go both ways.
Yeah, indeed they do. I mean, it's like it's a battle being fought in the media to no small extent. To no small extent at all. And we have a video coming about this thing over the weekend, because this is a huge thing, and it goes back very far away. So you'll all be glad to know that over the course of the weekend, we are going to be releasing a summary of everything that has happened, with the interpretation of what might happen next. And this is not going to be like clip shows from these live broadcasts. Fully scripted, narrated video, Midnight's Edge style, going through everything with the new narrator. So yeah, look forward to that. That's going to be awesome. So just pay attention this weekend, and we'll get into that, because this is exciting stuff, really exciting stuff. And we have a ton of super chats to go through. I know that some of those were addressed to Kamran. I'm sorry we couldn't get to them at the time, but also Kamran will be back, so we'll get into that. And as we always say, no super chat will be left behind. So we're going to go through every single one of them before the end here. So Valliant, unless there was something else that you had.
No, I was going to let you go ahead and get on the super chats. I know folks have been real great today, real patient. So let's see what they have to say.
Yeah, perfect. All right, I'm just going to see if there are any super chats we can bring up on screen here before we get into it. So. Nope, there's none that I can bring up on screen, but I do have the repository behind the scenes. So let us go into that. Organic Vistas said about 2 hours ago for $4.99. United Nerds Worldwide. My shift's done, and I can drive listening to you all and chilling. Wife and I seeing Dune in IMAX. United we nerd. Shalom. Well, I hope you're enjoying the movie. Maybe you're watching it right now. So yeah, hope you will enjoy it. And Troy Pacelli says for $5. I know they're pushing HBO Max, but they won't ignore if there's a huge cinema sales. Got my tickets, but not ready to invest in Max. Well, as long as you support the movie, then you have done. Then you have delivered your vote. That's all anyone can ask. Darius Munchausen sent us a popcorn super sticker, and Raging Golden Eagle says for $5. No wonder Hollywood is anti-gun. If they can cause this much damage with props, imagine giving these incompetents real weapons. Yeah, we got this one already, actually. And as we explained earlier, actually there are real weapons, just with blanks. And even the blanks are dangerous.
If it fires, it's not a prop.
Yeah, and Wild Man Beyond says, the whole Alec Baldwin thing makes you think. It may be a conspiracy of murder like Brandon Lee. Professionals on set can't be that stupid. Well, here's the thing, as I said before, never attribute to malice what can be explained by incompetence or sheer being distracted for a second. Like when stuff like this happens, it's really one thing. It's like a chain of events that have to happen, and it's like a million in a one shot, and this evidently was that 1 million. I do not think there's any kind of conspiracy against either him or against the woman, because it's just such a coincidence. So no, I don't believe there should be any room for that here. Just wait for everything. This is, in all likelihood, just a freak accident. As even Sigmund Freud said, sometimes a pipe is just a pipe.
STR Red Wolf sent in $5 this weekend. Bring up on screen. Thank you so much. Says, keeping sane with the tragedy, preventing another different tragedy. Midnight's Edge does it right. But can we get 1K likes? Smash the like button. Thank you for that, STR Red Wolf. And yeah, we're trying to keep it as level-headed as possible as we can. Because like I pointed out to Andre, like this is getting way out of hand with, the politics involved from every angle. And I don't mean just on the left and the right, but even the whole IATSE situation is being thrown into this, although it does have a place that was talked about earlier. But again, I think we all just need to step back and remember that we don't know all the facts yet. And until we do, we should really reserve judgment. And again, it's one of those tragedies that we have to remember that those who were affected the most right now, more than anything.
Exactly.
And we have hit the 1K. So thank you, chat, and keep
Thank you.
on pounding
Yes,
away.
thank you. That's amazing. And then moving on with the super chats, because we shall leave none behind. Unlike citizens in a certain different country, we need not get into. Just Nova said, "It's such a tragic situation. My heart to the families of everyone on set. I don't wish the guilt Alec will have on my worst enemy." Yeah, sound words. 02500 says for $4.99. Giant Dune fan here. I saw the movie last night on a standard screen, and I think it dulled the experience, especially the sound. Going again in IMAX. And you know what? I think you're right. I think not seeing it in IMAX will dull the experience, and that's not great for the movie's longevity.
Yeah, I didn't see it under the best visual conditions, but I did see it under fairly decent audio conditions, and the audio experience was just amazing, because that was one of the first things I said to Andre is this is some of the best sound editing and design I've ever heard, not just this year, but in general. Like they put a lot into this.
Oh yeah. Some shamanism and everything. I'm gonna heard some rumors and about that, and we'll follow up on that. And then Wild Man Beyond says for $4.99. Hollywood is anti-gun my ass, says Wild Man Beyond. We all know they're hypocrites, says Wild Man Beyond. They probably planned this, says Wild Man Beyond, to get political attention, says Wild Man Beyond. Now, I'm sorry I had to do that, but you got the drift, and I don't want to be sound bites. But and again, just Wild Man Beyond, no one planned this. This is a freak accident, and this was done to two of their own in the industry. This wasn't a planned thing to get attention. I mean, you could make that argument if it had been Chris Pratt or something, but not in this particular case. This was no inside job. This was a freak accident. That's every reason to think that.
Yeah, because there's even people trying to posit that a Trump supporter gave him the gun. I mean, it's
yeah, I know. I mean, all I will say is that derangement syndrome is alive and well in both ends, and when you mix it up with everything else, everyone just remembers sometimes pipe is just a pipe and never attribute. I mean, we are living in very weird times, and what is the fact that people are like saying that conspiracy theories are like now unfolding and becoming real, and it's true. It's horribly, horribly true. That's all I'm going to say about that. But this particular thing is just an accident, I do believe. And then Organic Vistas says for $4.99. Assalamu alaikum. Did I get that right? Best money spent just being united. Love you all. Well, thank you. And Organic, I will be sure to bring your Assalamu alaikum to Kamran later on. So don't worry about that. And Voice of a Free America says for $5. I was a consultant for a war movie and am a vet. Thank you for your service. It's impossible to mistake a real bullet for a blank/stunt bullet. And Valliant, yeah, you probably are in agreement with that those two should be pretty easy to distinguish. But again, we don't know what's happened here.
No, they should be easy to distinguish, obviously. But my point is, and what, again, people need to understand, and I realize people probably came in late after we had this more, in-depth discussion at the very beginning of the show.
Yeah, this was probably sent before that.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, but it's one of those things to where, unless you are, remember, once you have loaded a weapon and those cartridges are inside, if you're handing that weapon off to another person, in this case an actor on set, the next step is the actor needs to then inspect the weapon, because it's not like they're sitting there looking at, oh, well, this is a live round, this is a blank. No, they're already loaded into the weapon. unless you're re-inspecting the weapon before you're actually using it, if you're not the person who personally loaded it, which in this case, I promise you, an actor, whether it's Alec Baldwin or anybody else, they're not personally loading these weapons. They're being handed a weapon ready to go for the scene. But, you know, and again, assuming that for a moment that this could have been a live round issue, we do not know yet. And I cannot stress that enough. We are simply having an academic discussion. But, it could have been handed the wrong magazine. Like sometimes you'll have one magazines that are marked. These are live ammunition magazines. These magazines are loaded with blanks. Those type of things are usually kept in two completely separate places in a trailer, two separate boxes. They're well marked. It's possible somebody grabbed the wrong magazine. It's possible it wasn't a live round and that my point is every safety protocol still could have been followed. And something like this, though it may be a small chance, still could have happened. We just don't know.
Exactly.
And it is being investigated. So until we do know all the facts, I think that it's best that we just kind of reserve judgment. Yeah. And I don't know I think we grabbed Joe Pat's super chat already, because this is one I can bring up on screen. He says, want to apologize for my earlier super chat and recognize and commend you taking the high road and giving the benefit of the doubt. Well, thank you for that, Joe Pat. And then follows it up with another $5 super chat. Thank you. Says that sort of mentality is in line with my parents' advice regarding politics. Everyone has the right to be wrong, even Alec Baldwin. Exactly. And again, we cannot be conflating politics with a tragedy right now. This is this is the problem I'm seeing, even in the chat right as we speak. And this is where I know I commend our mods today, because they have I'm
sure they've had their hands full.
They have had days where they've had their hands full, but this is probably a day for the record books, I imagine. And again, everybody just remember to be respectful of everybody in this case right now, and do your best to be respectful in the chat. That way we don't have to worry about any timeouts or anything like that. And then we have another one that we can bring up on screen, Andre, from Rod Thunderhard, who sends in 10 Canadian dollars and says, "Hail, Andre, Tom, and Valiant. I agree with you guys that conspiracy theories about this are crap. It sounds more of just incompetent idiocy, not planned agenda. Freak accidents happen." That's putting it a little bit more bluntly, but yeah, that's clearly what I'm trying to say, and Andre's been trying to say is this whole time, is we need to just kind of remember that this is not related to all this other stuff we're dealing with as far as the politics wise. And Moldovan Alan sends in what is this? This is 10 RON is
that's Romanian.
Wow.
I do not recall because Moldovan Alan is actually Romanian.
Okay, well,
I think it's so cool. Because his name is Moldovan, which sounds like Moldavian, but it's actually the name Moldovan, which is a Romanian name.
Wow, well, thank you for listening in Romania. So there you go.
And the 10 Ron Swansons.
And this is kind of what we're saying. Yeah, tragedy makes us respect the risks of movie making. That's what we need to remember, is this was, a tragic situation, no matter which way you look at it. So,
yep.
Yeah. And he says Romanian lie. Is that how you say it? Lie or Lee?
Lie. Romanian lie.
Lie. So I had it right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Points for me.
Thank you.
And I'm caught up with what I can bring up on screen. So there you go.
And then we had here Golgo13 says, disregard my first $5 super chat. I have been set straight. Well, but again, that's a beauty. You see, to everyone that comes here with a certain attitude, and then the attitude is slightly modified, that is good. And we will not disregard your super chat. On the contrary, I will just say thank you again and say kudos for listening, because that is what we all have to do. That is how we all. I fucking hate using this term because it's an SJW term, but that is how we all do better, by having conversations and listening.
How about we use the term grow?
To other points of views? Because that way one can point out, like, whoa, like maybe one shouldn't be so judgmental for everything. There's a time for that.
But this
isn't that time, not yet.
Back in my time, we used the term grow or growth.
Yes, exactly.
So
Exactly.
don't you do better. Just we all need growth. We need
That's the much better hippie term from the 60s.
yes,
When the hippies were hippies too, and John Milius has his thoughts about that. But
They're not people, they're hippies.
they're kind of in line with Cartman's.
exactly.
And then we have another one we can bring up on screen here. Thunderstorm sends in $4.99, says seems to be a lot of accidents in the industry. Is it too much college and not enough apprenticeship?
And as we said, if you think there's many accidents now, you should have seen in the past. I mean, now at least they're like trying to
track of that shit.
Now they're trying to avoid them. There was like, I mean, just read up on some of the stuff that happened. Like
there was a movie shot. Not even that. Like, I was reading up on this stuff and I didn't bring it up, but there was a movie shot in Russia in the early 1980s where they actually used live rounds because the director insisted upon it.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. And then he was like, "Okay, everyone, duck."
Yeah, like this is the thing is like, I know this seems like it's crazy, but like more so in the since the Brandon Lee tragedy, I'm sure that they have really reevaluate a lot of how they use guns and stuff on set. So like this is probably one of those, like Valliant was just saying, they could have done every goddamn thing right. Alec maybe even did check it.
Right.
It just is one of those fucking situations. And because I know ever since the Brandon Lee tragedy, this is the first gun tragedy I remember hearing about since then. So that to me tells me that, hey, even though this has happened and it's a tragedy, we also have to look at the other side of this. They've managed to not have a gun accident since 1993. That is almost 30 fucking years. That's pretty good considering.
It is very good. There was like a time when they were like filming underwater scenes, like 5-minute scenes, and the security precaution was take a deep breath first, otherwise you're going to suffer.
No, I know. And like we brought Milius before him and several other directors. They do go too far sometimes, right? For that whole thing of film is forever, pain is temporary, but sometimes you got to slow down and remember.
Look at, like, for instance, the movies of Werner Herzog, especially if Klaus Kinski was in them. I mean, there was like one point during the filming of the first movie that they did together, which is Aguirre. That's one of the greatest movies ever made. And that was like true guerrilla filmmaking, where like people were like losing limbs and stuff like that because we're eaten by snakes and everything.
Yeah.
And at one point, just to make sure that he was acting, then the director Werner Herzog, he took out a live round in a gun and he put it into the mouth of Klaus Kinski, and he said, "You will now do what I say, and you will act, or I will fucking kill you, and I will kill myself afterwards."
Yeah,
I mean, HR might have an issue with something like that if that were to happen today.
You go back and look at like even William Friedkin, fucking Stanley Kubrick. A lot of these guys did things they could never, ever get away with today. And that's why I like things with like Ray Fisher make me laugh, right? And I know it's kind of sad to laugh at shit like that, but it's like, dude, you have no fucking clue what a director can do and get away with. Like, this is just like the shit that they used to do and get away with back in the day is definitely criminal. Let's be real about this in certain aspects.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we've come leaps and bounds from where we used to be, and we do have a few more super chats I can bring up on screen.
Yeah, we do. But first, I want to highlight another comment here from Cam, who says, "Andre and Tom, thank you for all your great content, and especially for the way you handled the situation today. Thank you to all the great mods too." Yes, I want to say thank you to the mods and to our guests, especially to Valliant, but also to everyone out there listening. And you know what I really loved is the heated but respectful debate. And this is a place where you can go for conversations. Yes, sometimes the mods have to work a little bit, but because of that, we can have some great conversations here and have an amazing community. And
I think we have some of the best
fellowship. I think I agree with Gary. I like the word fellowship rather than community. Another SJW term that I started to dislike. But in this fellowship that we have here,
And we have some of the best mods on
Fellowship
YouTube.
of the YouTube.
We have
Yeah,
Six,
exactly.
we got Meg here today. We've got
I commend that
Trump.
accent, by the way.
All you guys, thank you so much. We have Lindsay in the chat I've seen as well. So yes, all you wrenches today, thank you so much for your hard work. I know it's probably been a hectic day. But before I can get to some of these super chats that I can bring up on screen, why don't we grab some classic ones?
Yes. Sent a super sticker, and we can get that one up right away. And here we also got another one from the Wild Man Beyond, and we still have classics. We'll get to them. Who says for $4.99, do you remember the scene in Child's Play 3 when it was supposed to paint in the gun and Chucky switched them to live rounds?
Yes, I do. Yeah, that was a movie scene though. Like, right. Yeah. And that, again, you have to go through I get it, where some people are going through the conspiracy theories and stuff like that. It's just one of those things where
it's one of those, and I can't blame them, because look at the times we're living in. If you were to go back to yourself from 2 years ago, go back 2 years in time and tell yourself from 2 years ago everything that is happening to the world, to the West, to America, to Australia, to Italia, with fucking full return of dictatorship, would you have believed it?
No,
so I can't blame anyone for going to the conspiracy theory thinking, but that's what I'm saying, that through all of this madness and everything like that, sometimes a freak accident is just a freak accident.
And we're trying to be as reasonable as possible, like with the chat and all that kind of stuff. That's what I'm saying. Like, well, let's try to remember, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I do have a couple of super chats I can bring up on screen, but I think we should grab some of the classic ones.
Yes, let's do some classic super chats here. And we left off with, let's see, we got this one already. Phantom Boomer said for $5, I enjoyed this version of Dune much more than the original theatrical version. Yeah, and I don't blame you for that. The question should be, did you enjoy it more than the alternate edition Redux by Spice Diver, which honestly is the only version of David Lynch's Dune anyone should ever watch ever again. And you're Muslim.
It still makes me laugh when I think about how excited you got when I told you that Spice Diver cut was going to be on that German release.
Yeah, exactly, because it's the best version of the movie. Seriously, that's the only one anyone needs to watch ever again. I mean, you have
I don't see him get excited very often.
4K, but that's one of my favorite movies. It's not in top 10, but it is in top 20.
I just love it when you get excited, because I don't get to see it too often.
No, it doesn't happen so often. Like when you're dead inside, that's a good inoculation from being excited very often. But it does happen, just not very
like a
rarely.
normal person that would bring to tears, evidently. That's how emotional he got over it, like on the level.
Yeah. And your Muslim uncle says, watching Extro 2018 version now. 4 versions, 1 disc. That seems like a packed disc.
I have one
4 versions of the movie on 1 disc.
I have one of those, but then I was told that there was another. I wonder if he has the one that Mike was telling me I should get. Yeah, because I have an import of that, but I guess I have like the Italian one, and he's like, get the German one, it's a better print. But yeah, there's a bunch of different shit on there, I guess.
The German rules for a Blu-ray special edition.
I guess it's like out of print, so it's
unparalleled for it. And Comrade Roof Korean the Based said for $10, basic training for the army. One of the soldiers in my platoon had a blank casing lodged into the barrel of an M4. In the army, you learn live rounds before you attach a BFA onto the rifle for blanks. So yeah, and they do have like weapons training on movie sets as well, and Baldwin has had that several times over. But still, something went wrong this time. And Wet Wolfpack says for $10, have worked on period Hollywood films like Gods and Generals back in the late 90s and early 2000s. The reenactors had better safety standards than legally required. Need better standards. Very well be. And then Mercenary X21 sent us 2 super chats in a row. The first one saying, I was at Comic-Con. Oh, Comic-Con, that's the second one. I was at Comic-Con, and I met somebody who knew the prop guy involved in Mike Lee's accident on the Raven. Guy swears he checked it. Ruined him. And yeah, I don't blame him. I mean, that's going to be with someone forever. The DCV Titan says for 10 Canadian dollars, I think it was for the Doom movie. The guy in charge of weapons took the actors and told them, I know we're using blanks, but don't F around. Then showed them what happens with a mannequin head. Yeah, you see, that's how you...
That's a good way
stay
to...
in precaution. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Show them exactly what a blank can do. A blank doesn't mean harmless. And Anti-Derivative Jill sent us a unicorn super sticker, so thanks for that. And Ryan Bannon says for 5 Canadian dollars, everyone is talking about blame. Is it not possible it was an unnoticeable defect in the gun and or cartridge? It could be. We just have to wait for the end results of the investigation. That's like the thing. We don't know. It could be something that this was utterly unnoticeable and therefore just a sheer dumb accident that no one is really to blame for.
Well, and actually,
we don't know.
That goes good. That goes good. That goes nicely with this super chat here. So I'll just address it now from Kit Kat. Thank you so much. Who sends in £5. Says, how does a single bullet kill one person and go on to wound another? This would seem to defy the laws of physics. Actually, not as much as you'd think, right, Valiant?
No,
we don't know that it was one bullet, though.
That's exactly. That's what I was going to say.
And that was what brings me back to the last super chat is we have no idea what exactly happened. We don't know if it was maybe the gun blew up and that's how the director besides.
I don't think so, because in that case you would have expected some backfiring and Baldwin to have been hurt as well. But
it is very, 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 very possible, especially being at that close of range, that a bullet could have went through one individual and hit another.
And it could have been something as simple as if everybody, if that is what happened. We don't know. I just want to stipulate, I don't want people cutting stuff out of context, but if that is what happened, and you had a cinematographer standing behind the camera, looking at the view screen or looking through the viewfinder, optical view, or electronic viewfinder, and you had a director basically standing right behind her. And let's say that she was elevated based on the type of shot they were doing, and the director might have been slightly below her, but standing behind her. From what we do know from the story, she was hit in the abdomen, and the director was hit, I believe, in the shoulder. So theoretically, the bullet could have gone through her and into the director's shoulder, who was right behind her.
There is another slight possibility as well. Yeah. And it's related to it. Again, this is pure speculation because I'm not sure that there was just one bullet or one item that was sent, however you want to put it. But if you want to argue physics, how that could happen, it is also within the realms of what is possible that the bullet could have gone into her abdomen, hit her spine, and then ricocheted from that, exited her body through the side and hit his shoulder.
Right.
And by that time, there wouldn't have been much force left, which is why he wasn't that badly injured, because he's apparently already out of the hospital. Again, this is speculation. It may not have happened that way, but it is within the realm of our reality.
One other possibility, because, and here's the thing, the bullet thing comes in from what I've been looking now is that comes from a report according to IATSE. So there's where people are saying that there's some fucking shenanigans going on with the politics involved. We don't know for sure if it was an actual bullet yet.
Correct.
Until the police report comes out, I'm reserving all judgment because this could very well be a situation like the Crow. In that case, Andre, much like what you just said, similarly, but a little bit different, multiple projectiles could have come out of the gun.
Exactly. That's what I mean. We don't know. We don't know if it were multiple rounds, or if it was one shot with multiple projectiles, or if it was one projectile that hit both people. All of those are possible within the realms of physics and our general existence. Every single one of those is possible, which is why we just have to wait until we learn more.
No, but it's a completely valid question, Kit Kat, and thank you for
it's
that.
A very
all
valid
the speculations, all those speculations we just made were just strictly academic in relation to that particular super
pure academic, but these are like ways that it may have happened, and we don't know which one of those, but every single one of those scenarios that we presented are realistic and plausible.
And there's a lot of crap going around right now, so I'm not going to be quick to believe any headline or any story unless it comes from a direct authority.
No, I want to see a coroner's report. That's what's going to tell the tale. That's the only thing I think at this point.
Because there's going to be a lot of politics balls being played here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And we will get back to more of the more current super chats, but let's get to some more of the classic ones.
Yeah, some more classic super chats. Then we have Echo Base Network, also sorry, another great channel that everyone should go check out. And Echo Base Network says for $9.99. It is the responsibility of the person with the gun to know if it's hot or not. You should never trust anyone other than yourself on that responsibility. Keep up the great work, guys. No, thank you. But I don't know if that necessarily is true on the case of a movie set. If they are handed a gun by a prop master, again, I don't know the rules here, but I think that in that particular case, the actor can, in good faith, say that they were handed a weapon that they thought was safe to use.
Yeah, and that's where I was talking about earlier with the liability part of this. Like, it's very unlikely. I should restate what I said earlier in a different way. It's very unlikely that Alec is the one that is going to be found to be at fault here. That doesn't mean that necessarily is the case, but it's highly unlikely. So that's kind of a revised version of what I said earlier. In most cases, this is going to fall on somebody in the gun department or the safety department.
And if I can elaborate on that, because here there are multiple hats. I don't think that any legal blame will fall on Alec Baldwin wearing the hat of actor. I agree that it's going to fall on the, presumably based on early reports, non-union armor master or whatever the title is. And then they're going to look at, well, why is it non-union? Why did you hire someone that obviously botched this or seemingly botched this? And then the responsibility is going to go right back to Alec Baldwin wearing the hat of producer.
And then the hat goes higher than that,
calls the shots.
But then it goes higher than that, though, Andre, because this is a Netflix production. And this is where IATSE gets involved.
Yeah.
Because of all the bullshit that's going on right now. This is, I hate to put it this way because it's a fucking tragedy, but this is like one of the worst things that could happen in the middle of this whole fucking IATSE thing.
It is. No good can come from this.
Yeah.
No good can come from this. If anyone thinks that anything good is going to come from this, they are completely mistaken. No good will come
Everybody
from this.
is going to use this for their own political means, yes.
And what worries me is that someone is probably going to be successful in their political fight. And all of the political fighting here, honestly, is bad.
Yes, and that's kind of like, yeah, in a nutshell, that's what I've been trying to say the whole show, unfortunately, but yeah. So,
and then we have a penultimate response, and he says for $4.99 he did not want to do another take and said another take. How about I shoot you both? He was negligent at best. It's true. Fact check me.
Yeah, I've heard this too, but I don't know if this is true.
But I don't know that it's accurate. If it's accurate, if that is accurate, that places the liability at a completely different level, if that is accurate. What I heard is that this is something that originally was in Variety, and then it was removed from Variety with the screenshot remaining. I've seen that screenshot, but I do not know if it's a legit screenshot or if it's a doctored screenshot. So for the time being, I would put that into the rumor category. And as we've said, just await further information. If that is indeed what happened, and I'm not saying it isn't, but if it is, we will learn of that. And that is going to take like the placing of blame at a different level.
Here's the other thing is I almost can guarantee that if there wasn't a camera rolling at that time, there was probably audio rolling. So there is probably more than enough. They have to go through the evidence though, right? Like this is something's going to take time. And the problem with
exactly. If that happens, there's evidence.
And the problem with that is in this whole situation, besides the politics side of this now, this gets into a whole nother fucking level of fucking shittiness, is because of this type of thing that this just happened here. The tabloids are going to be all over this shit. So you cannot believe any fucking thing that comes out until the goddamn coroner's report and the fucking police report comes out. And I'm not yelling at you, Penultimate, or anybody for that matter. I'm just saying it just irritates me because now you're going to have everything from TMZ to the National Enquirer putting all kinds of nutty shit out there. And
exactly,
you got to be very careful on where you take what from. And again, because I've heard this too, Penultimate, but until I actually hear this in an official document,
we haven't brought it up specifically because we can't fact check it at this juncture. We only know where it is claimed to come from, but we don't know if it really came from there. So again, take it with a grain of salt and await judgment until we know. And if that is what happened, again, that puts this as a completely different level, but we don't know that yet. So we'll deal with that when we do know.
You know, when Abraham Lincoln tweeted last week that everything on the internet is true. So, you know, it's you can't.
He's my favorite new contestant on Dancing with the Stars, too.
Yes. I mean, look. Let's be patient and wait and see for the official reports to come out.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not trying to get all passionate and whatever, but like I said, I know this is a thing that's going to get messy as shit.
Oh yeah,
it's not. This is just the beginning, and unfortunately, I feel bad for those who are affected the most, and that is Helena and her family.
Yes, indeed it is. And then we also can bring up who says for $4.99, like in many professions, there is an incredible amount of trust in the safety conditions on a set, from the costumes to the other props. Indeed.
Well, and that's where guns are treated differently than a normal prop.
Right.
I mean, and that's why normal, and I'll reiterate it again. The fact that we haven't had a tragedy like this in 30 years, we do need to remember that too. Mm-hmm. I hate to say it that way, but it is important to reiterate, I think.
Yeah, indeed. And with that, let's return to some classic super chats.
Yes.
And the next of the classics is from Mercenary X21, who said, "Sorry, Alec is done. Hammer is coming down on him." And yeah, we'll see. We will know what happened, I think. And so just await the hammer for the time being, and just save it up for later in case history or the evidence shows that the hammer is warranted. But as of right now, await with that hammer. And then Arisaka says for $5, "I think a good takeaway from this horrible situation is that for all gun owners, especially the ones within the last 2 years, to brush up on fundamentals." As a gun owner, Valliant, is that advice that you agree with?
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, if you are going to be somebody who chooses to go out and exercise your Second Amendment protected rights to defend yourself, then it is incumbent upon you. And this is one of the first things you will learn, especially if you not only purchase a firearm, but if you decide to go the extra step, as I did 21 years ago, and you decide to become a concealed carry license holder, CHP, concealed handgun permit. You have to go through training in most every state. It's about 35 states in the U.S. that issue these, and most have full reciprocity. So if you get one in Louisiana, you can bring it to Mississippi, to Texas, to any of the other 35 states, and your licensure there is valid. But you have to re-up this every so many years. And one of the first things you will learn in basic firearms safety, which is the course you have to take, is that you need to keep your skills up. is that you need to consistently and routinely, practice firearm safety at all times. And it's not something, as far as the safety procedures, are something hard to do. They're not. We've stated all the stuff today. Number one, they teach you always treat a firearm as if it's loaded. Never point a firearm at anything unless you intend to shoot it. And your fingers should remain on the side of the weapon, never inside the trigger guard until the moment you are ready to shoot. Things like that. When you're cleaning a weapon, ammunition should be kept very separate from that weapon. The weapon should be checked routinely. There's plenty of safety procedures that anybody can do. My 10-year-old son, Renegade Jr., can do all of these things with almost perfect precision because I've taught him from a young age. I mean, he knows how to go out there and he can take an AR-15 and he can fire it, and he knows how to load it and unload it, and he's very careful with it. And it's kind of a shame. We used to have, many years ago in this country, a better sense of firearm safety, but more importantly, respect for human life. That's the paramount thing. Teaching your kids that, teaching your children about, hey, you need to know what to do if you run across these things. There's all kind of stuff that can be done. But yes, take this opportunity out there. Everybody who is a responsible, legal gun owner in this country or anywhere else around the world, and take this time, go check your firearm, make sure it's still secure, make sure it's still stored properly, make sure it's still safe, make sure the rounds you're using are proper. Know whether or not your firearm currently is loaded or unloaded, where it is the safety on, have you done everything you're supposed to do? And then once you've done all that, look, make sure you take yourself out to the range every now and again and go practice, because the safest firearm owner is the one who knows how to operate a firearm cleanly and safely and can hit the target they intend to hit. Practicing with it is very important.
Yes, indeed. That's some solid advice there. And with that, let us go back to the classic
And I
Super Chats.
mean, I don't want to go too deep into this real quick, though. I just want to say, though, it's another thing for people who are gun owners and gun advocates, too, is this is another thing they're probably going to try and use against the whole
no doubt.
gun debate.
No doubt. They always will.
So, again, approach this shit with caution. I know some of those same people don't like Alec Baldwin. So just choose what you say right now cautiously. I'm not telling anybody what to do, but just remember that, because just like what Baldwin has said on Twitter is being used against him right now, the same kind of shit can happen for people who are in the other arena. So just, I know emotions are high and you want to quick to jump and make a statement or a joke or anything like that, but just remember how that may come off later. Because again, we got to remember the people that were actually hurt in this situation more so than Alec Baldwin. So
yeah, I was going to say the easiest thing to remember, folks, is it could have been you. It could have happened to anybody. I mean, and I'm talking about being in the position of Alec Baldwin. It could have been anybody on that set, as Andre stated. It could have been any one of us, and it didn't even have to be with a gun. I mean, think of the people that get in their cars and say, and in moments of panic or something, we see videos all the time. They're all over YouTube. People smash the accelerators instead of the brakes. They hit people. They don't mean to do it. Everything, all the safety precautions were taken. You did everything you thought, and then a mistake happened. So let's not judge. This is something that as of right now, this is something that could have happened to anybody.
And the only reason I bring it up is because I have seen some people that I respect kind of, maybe take a little too far. So I just hope it isn't something that, a lot of people regret later is all. And, like I said, I try to make sure everything I put on Twitter is stupid for a reason. And I meant that jokingly, but in truth as well. It's something like a lot of the stuff I say on there is generally just nonchalant bullshit, because I know it's just going to all be used against me at some point. So what's the difference? Just make it worthwhile. But no, like most of the time I'm goofing around. That's what I'm trying to say here is, but like there's people who seriously use Twitter every day to just to say some, and it gets used against them. Look at what we're looking at right now with Alec Baldwin, and the stupid statement he made in 2017 is being, used in all these articles and shit. And to me, it's just like, come on, let's be a little bit more realistic here with this whole thing and look at it logically and not be so quick to judge the whole situation without knowing all the facts and all that business. So anyway,
exactly. And then the Black Douglas, I think he must have sent a super chat already that we haven't gotten to yet, because he says, didn't you listen to my super chats? Paul Dano doesn't use a gun. Joker Easter eggs are abundant. Matt doesn't like guns. Okay. Yeah, I think maybe there's an earlier super chat to give some context to that.
Yeah, let's
And
go get to
that. Thank you. Thanks for the support. And with that, let's get back into the classic super chats. Next one is Just Nova, who wonders, is prop gun a legal term or colloquial term used by Hollywood? And the answer is that it's a colloquial term. The legal term is replica gun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's that, and then in some cases, Valliant aren't. I mean, I know there's real weapons that are used, but that's the whole point: is they're real weapons, but they're
if they have to fire, if they have to be. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're shooting a blank or if you're shooting a dummy load or if you're shooting a live round. It doesn't matter. It has to be a real gun. I mean, you have to have a hammer, strike a primer, and a cartridge full of black powder to make the bang. The bullet doesn't have to be loaded on the front of the cartridge, but that is a real weapon. The only time you have a, quote, prop gun or a replica weapon, those weapons are entirely, it's just a solid piece of plastic or rubber.
Exactly.
Kind of composite.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's
And
meant
then it's a replica when it can't fire. And if it does fire, then it's not what you would call a prop gun.
No, it's either
then it's a live gun
or it's a real gun. Yeah.
And again, I know there's a lot of different things going in the press, and that goes back to what I was just saying before, is until we actually know exactly what happened through actual reports, I'm trying to reserve what I say as far as like what actually happened and what was used. But like in most cases, 9 times out of 10, no matter what it is, it's still a real actual working gun. You can call it a prop gun if you want, I guess, but it may be the definition is only because you have a specialist on site and it's, through whatever, but like, no, it's still a gun. It's in the end, it's still a gun that works, that is an actual working gun. So like until that's maybe an argument should be made that we've come to a point now with technology that they should be able to make guns that don't have to actually fire anything, that still do the same things and look the same. That's
the problem with that is that then the physics is all wrong. The only way that you're actually going to get the recoil, and this goes to Newton's laws of mechanics. If you want to get the recoil to come back at you as if something is moving forward, something actually has to move forward. And even if that is just gas, that gas pressure at close enough range is going to do some damage.
No, you got a point, because even if, let's say, theoretically, if you were able to make
the laws of physics ain't gonna change.
No, I got you, and that's the thing is I'm saying, let's say theoretically, if you're even to make a fake gun that has a kick to it through like a CO2 of some type, that still doesn't mean that there isn't the possibility that some couldn't get lodged in that fucking chamber and blast out at enough of a rate to hurt somebody or kill somebody.
Exactly.
I got you, and
even if it's just exhaust
debates. Yeah, and that's where it goes back to what I just said. I think we have to look at the fact that it's been 30 years or so since we've had a tragedy like this. So up to this point, things have been pretty good. So what didn't they do, or what did they do differently here than other productions? And that'll probably be part of the investigation too.
Right, that's what we don't know yet. Yeah.
And it could be nothing, like Valliant just said. It could be they done every goddamn thing right. So they thought, and just something got fucked up along the way, but nobody's fault of their own. It's just a million things can go wrong.
They could have dropped the weapon on the ground the moment before the shot, and a small pebble got lodged at the end of the muzzle, for all we know. And then he just picked it up and they went on with the scene. And then, boom, there you go. I mean, I know that sounds crazy.
No, but
the odds of that but I mean, my point is, it could be something as ridiculous as that.
Well, and to go back to the Brandon Lee thing, my understanding of what happened there was they used one of the rounds that you showed us earlier, where it actually has the cap. For the one scene, and then they removed them, but the individual who removed them, it accidentally, one of the caps was left inside the deal, and when they put the other rounds in, they didn't expect it properly, or whatever happened, or they didn't happen to see that in there still.
Yeah, the barrel was obstructed, basically.
Exactly. So then when the gun was shot, that cap came out, and that is what actually killed Brandon Lee. So like, this could be that's where I wouldn't be surprised at all if that's what happened here.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
were
even a
using the-
plastic cap, even a wad of cardboard, or something at a close enough range and a high enough velocity that can still cause damage.
Well, and they were close enough to him probably being at a close angle. It's very likely. Again, we're speculating here, folks, so do take that all with a grain of salt. But anyway,
Yeah. Moving on with the super chats. Colin McDonald sent us €5 with no comment, but thanks for the support. Doug Files says for $9.99, if you watch the making of Thelma and Louise, when a gun is aimed toward the camera, Ridley Scott had a thick piece of clear plastic that he filmed through. And Sean the Movie Man 71, who I know has probably left us by this time. He was annoyed that we didn't get to the super chat earlier. Sorry about that, but today of all days, it was difficult. So you're just going to have to excuse this one-time war crime. But he said, Kamran, does this give validity to Ruby Rose's claims? And I would say that those are two completely different incidents, and we know that the set of Batwoman was a horrendous one with many accidents and stuff like that, and the truth is somewhere in between. So this alone doesn't give.
Or they're
any
both
more
accurate,
credence.
to be honest
Yeah.
with you.
Or they're exactly. I mean, sometimes no one is innocent.
Well, and I've said this to a lot of people in the last week. Is like, it doesn't mean that neither of them are true. To be honest with you, they both can be true. Like,
Yeah,
she could have
exactly.
been under shitty working conditions and still been a diva. So
Probably that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Working conditions were shit, and she took them even worse because she's a diva.
Exactly. So there you go. Because I mean, as far as the work environment goes, that's all on CW and the people they hire. And again, that's kind of, in that case, yes, it's kind of similar to the whole thing here, where I think it's going to fall upon, the deal that Netflix made and whatever entails in that. And that's probably what's going to get brought up in the open through all this. And that's why I said this is the worst possible time for this to happen, in the worst way as far as the IATSE thing. And I hate to say that because of the tragedy behind it, but that's where they're going to use this, right?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the political side of that. Other than that, that's the only real connection I can find here. Outside of that, it all has to do with just, how the production was run on. That's a completely different animal, like Andre was saying. And, with Ruby Rose, look, this is all I have to say about Ruby Rose. She was in like 2 major movies as far as like what everybody knows her from, and that's the Meg and John Wick. And she gets her first TV show on a network. Regardless of what it is, she complained about every little thing about it. Honestly, I have very little sympathy for her on that part. And as far as the injury that she sustained goes, again, without knowing all the evidence on that, I have heard from more than enough people that it may have been something that she sustained before working on this show, and she just tried to use the show as an excuse. So that is also a possibility as well. So
Again, we don't know the full story here. So
no, but that's where I think both sides are probably telling the truth in this case for the most part.
There's no good side here. They're all bad.
All I know is Warner's trying to cover their ass like a motherfucker.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But I don't think they're innocent in any way, shape, or form.
And then we got an incredible $50
Thank
from
you so
Erin
much.
Pipes. Thank you so much.
Wow.
And she says, I own the full automatic Steyr AUG that was used in Die Hard. It was a real gun.
Mm-hmm.
The barrel was modified to fire blanks as a prop gun. The original modified barrel has been replaced, and it is now as live as it can possibly be.
Well, there you go.
That's cool. It's really cool that you own that. And you know what? That reminds me of a friend of my dad, because my dad, he was in the Norwegian army. And a friend of him, he would buy these guns, like really exotic, cool guns. And the only way that you could buy them in Norway was because they had been destroyed. I don't know the term, but they had done something to them so that they couldn't be fired.
They used to be, and we had them when I was in high school and I was in junior ROTC, and that's what we had when we had drill. Our rifles, the M16s, they were modified basically with you. All you really do is you slam a piece of molten lead or metal
Exactly,
into the
that's it.
barrel,
Yeah,
and you seal it
exactly.
shut. They're
Yeah.
you cannot load them, you cannot fire them. It is every bit an authentic weapon, except for the fact that it has been, the back of the barrel the back of the barrel has been modified to where it's just been mutilated. You can't even use it.
This guy, however, this was my story. He knew his weapons, so whenever time he got like one of these guns that had been modified to be rendered useless, he knew exactly what to do with it, and it would never take him more than 2 hours to get that one gun working again.
Oh, you just bore it out. Yeah, bore
exactly.
the construction back out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, it's a lot easier to do than it is to get it to stop.
Yeah. And then Mr. Tickle Trunk says for $5 Canadian, "This is why I stayed when I found your channel years back. You know when to be serious. Today was anti-political, responsible, and adult. And Valiant, thank you." Yes,
Thank you,
indeed, we
Mr.
do
Tickle
try.
Trunk.
I mean, there's a time for when you can like joke and have a little bit of fun, and there are times when you can't. And this is one of those times.
Yeah, and then Black Douglas, I'm going to grab these before I lose them. These are the few that I could grab on screen before that I just didn't get to yet. Who is better off? The family that grows potatoes, the family that cuts beef, the family that pours wine, or the family that grows bananas? I'll give you a hint. It's a trick question. The family that gets to eat them all. That's the ones. I knew that answer. That's why I wanted to get to that.
Yeah, I was
the
I was
ones
about
being
to say
served. Yeah.
I was about to say the family with the gun.
No, but it's no. The ones who are the trick question is, unless I'm wrong here, is he's describing, the people that do all this stuff, the ones who actually get to eat it without having to go through all that crap. That's
Well, I was going to say it could theoretically all be the same family. It doesn't indicate that they're different
True.
families.
That's true as well.
Probably these are different families working for another family.
That's what I was thinking, but it all depends on
they are the pleb working for the betters.
Yeah. And then we got the Kit Kat one that came after that. So thank you so much again for that. And then we got Grand Wazoo, who sends in 10 euros. It says, "Congratulations, Midnight's Edge. You handled that topic with class and decency. Valiant's explanations were great." And that's why we brought him here, because earlier they asked, why didn't we get somebody? If we had the time to prepare, we probably could have gotten like somebody who works in the industry, in the gun, in that kind of department, but it would have taken us a week or two.
We didn't have time to
but knowing Valliant, knowing as much as he does about guns, that was the first person I went to this morning. I'm like, I sent him the link. I'm like, get your butt in here, kind of thing. So I knew.
I'm glad I had a quiet day at the office. So that's why everybody.
Because I'm a complete novice when it comes to guns. I mean, I don't hate them. I don't know them that well. I've taken hunter safety when I was younger. I respect them, and I'm just not a gun person. So that's just all that is.
Yeah.
So with that, I needed somebody who understood it. Yes.
Yeah. And then Tom, you have to say the name here.
Rod Thunderheart sends in $5 Canadian. Says, "Hail Midnight's Edge in the morning. Just another few bucks to help keep the lights on. Thank you so much. We'll see Dune sometime this weekend, and excited as hell to see it. Well, glad to hear, Rod, and I hope it lives up to your expectations." I enjoyed it quite a bit.
I've got to get my ass to an IMAX theater. I can't wait. Watching it on TV last night was great, but my God, I need to see it on an IMAX.
Yeah, it's just I got to find the time to make the trip. That's my problem.
That's my problem. It's an
hour
away.
It jumped ahead on me here, and my next one is Mr. Tickle Trunk here. So I don't know what was in between there. So
we got this one, and but we have another one from Mr. Tickle Trunk who says, "Valiant crushed it today. Go sub to him now, and here's the link to his channel." So indeed, go sub to Valliant. I mean, we have him on for a reason, and he has some really, really good analysis. So do check him out. And then Etienne Falardeau says for $5 Canadian, "Gas blowback and electric blowback airsoft rifles and pistols do exist and look really good overall. Kick is like 50 to 80% of real blowback, mind you."
Yeah, but then there's a question though: is there still something that's shooting forward to get that kick? That's what I was saying earlier.
Well, it's not just that. It's like when, in the very beginning when I was kind of demonstrating with the pistol, it's not just a matter of simulating that recoil, because again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, some of these, and you can go look them up, you can go Google it, you can find there's a big Hollywood shop that sells blanks to all these studios and production companies. One of them brags about, we supplied the entire set for Saving Private Ryan, which probably 100,000 rounds were fired off in that movie. But sometimes like they will have 50% loads or 25%. They call them quarter loads and half loads. So it's the same size casing. I'll turn the camera back on real quick. You have the same size casings, 9mm cartridge, but it's only packed half full, and the rest of it's just a wad that's in there to seal it so the gas can go. The difference is when you have an airsoft, you can still kind of simulate some of that recoil action. The problem is nothing is going to come out of that ejection port, right? The whole idea is once the bullet at the front of the cartridge has left and it's exited the muzzle, in the case of a live round, you still need this piece of brass, this casing, to pop out the side to make it look real. An airsoft rifle and all that, there's no casing that's going to eject. So that's why they use this on sets, because if you want to get what a real pistol, and I'll show you again. All right, just for everybody who didn't see it earlier, magazine out, it's not loaded. You still have to have something come out of this ejection port. So that's why they use the blanks. That's why they do it that way, is because they want that authenticity of a gun firing, which again has been done. I just brought up Saving Private Ryan. We're talking about a movie where 100,000 rounds, dummy rounds, blanks, everything were spent, and they probably did in some cases use some live ammunition if they were shooting something where there was nobody in the way. They were just shooting, and they needed that effect. But there's certain things you can't replicate, or if you try to replicate it in post-production, you're talking about spending a ridiculous amount more versus, a single round of ammunition that might cost you 25 cents or 50 cents.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit, and again, I think this is a debate that's going to go on for the next couple of weeks. It's going to be, I do feel that this is going to be something that's going to be discussed and talked about, and it's going to be used in a lot of different arguments. Black Douglas sends in another £5 here and says, why do Americans need live guns? Their government considers foreign candy more dangerous. Without using Google, who invented the NRA, guys? I don't know. Do you know?
It's a cultural thing that is completely incomprehensible to anyone who is not American. That is something that I can say as a Norwegian with some traveling. You just have to accept that the Second Amendment is sacred. And it's to many in Europe, it's going to be completely incomprehensible, but it's a unique cultural thing that you just cannot try to touch. Because and when you look right now, if you look through history, you have like this in China and every place where there has been a major communist dictatorship. Before the takeover, they come for your guns.
Yeah, exactly.
And as divided as America is, the United States of America is somewhat of a misnomer, because really not that united. Just for some level of unity and basic security, you need those guns, and it's not. It's basically to protect against the government, and it's in the Constitution.
That's exactly
and it's something that many outside of America who haven't realized, that haven't studied the history, the laws, the culture, they don't understand it, and honestly, that's on them. It's something you just have to accept.
Well, and I'm assuming this is probably correct, because the next person I would have asked other than Valliant would have been this individual here. Stephanie Janisek says the NRA was created after the Civil War to keep black farmers safe from the KKK. That is the honest truth, and we like our guns. It's part of our heritage and cultures. So there you go. There's the probable answer on that.
Yeah, I didn't want to get into a long constitutional discussion on this show, but I mean, it's Andre said it. There's reasons for it. The reason why, and the short version is, when that Constitution had to get ratified, they started the process in 1787, was finally ratified in 1789. The Bill of Rights, you got the first 10 amendments. Second Amendment was in there for one explicit reason, and it's exactly what Andre said. It was put in there because at the time, it was a fear of, hey, look, we just left one tyrannical government. We don't want to have another one pop up. And the Constitution wanted to make sure that the ultimate power in the country, the newly formed country, would still be able to rest with the individuals, with the citizens. That was the bottom line.
Yeah.
Exactly, and the Constitution is more democratic than any European constitution for that very reason. So yeah, don't underestimate
and
that.
let's just say that look at what's happening in certain countries right now, and that's probably a good.
Just about to say Australia.
I'm not gonna. I
So,
wasn't gonna say it out
well,
loud, but
there are many. You don't. It's not just there. You have several European countries
that's a good
where there is a
example.
complete totalitarian takeover
Mhm.
that couldn't have happened if the populace had guns.
And we said years ago when certain countries, when their governments decided there was no more private gun ownership, and we're talking just in the last few decades here, the writing was on the wall, and we're seeing the results of it now today.
But this is such a sensitive subject that I didn't even want to say that, and I didn't even want to get too deep into that.
Yeah,
part
I'm
of the
sorry, I shouldn't
discussion.
have named it.
No.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. But like, and my point is like, yeah, that's the thing with YouTube is they like to pick and choose what they allow us to talk about sometimes. Diego Flores sends in 5 Peruvian souls and says, "Wonder how it will look like in IMAX. We don't have those fancy things here in Peru, so HD is the most I can ask for." And he's probably talking about Dune, I'm assuming.
Yeah, of course, which only goes to show that it's really horrible to say, but I think that this is a problem with the movie, that it can only be experienced to the fullest in IMAX, which means that a large chunk of the world's population will never be able to see the movie the way it was supposed to be seen, including everyone in Peru.
Well, I'll do my best to try and compare the two ways I view it. So, and I'll try and let you know, Andre. And I'm sure you're going to see it one way or the other way too again. So, we'll all get a chance to kind of evaluate that in the near future. Lupu sends in 20 Mexican dollars. Says it's not democratic, Andre. It's limited republic.
Yeah, this
I
is
didn't want to
true,
go
but
into
it's
a constitutional discussion. But yes,
again, but it's a matter of
Yeah.
but it's a matter of, is the government there for the people, or are the people there for the government? That
Great
is
way to say it.
the real core issue. And
Yeah.
with that,
Let's
let's
get back to
move
some
on with the classics. Yes, because we still have a few to go through here. Aluvrian Imakara says for $5, as a deputy coroner, I have a badge and a gun when I'm on duty, and I see firsthand what goofing around with firearms can bring. Guns are not toys. Indeed. And Ra1381 says for $10, nice to see people not just shitting on Alec Baldwin. Someone is to blame, and I hope they get punished. But it's not for me to decide who or what punishment. I hope it doesn't end like Brandon Lee. Well, in some ways it already did, but yeah, we'll see what happens as time goes on here. And then Credo Ape Thor says for $4.99, Alec took advantage of situations like these politically, so the backlash should be expected. I appreciate your guys' objectivity. And yeah, he made himself quite unpopular with a lot of people. So,
and that's been addressed,
yeah.
and it's understandable and it's fair, but that's where I stress to some people, like, just remember, emotions are high and heated right now. Let's just keep that in mind, and try not to conflate too many things.
Yeah. And then moving on here, then we have Daryl the Derelict, who says for $20, thank you so much. This is such a tragedy. I truly hope that they take care of her family without hesitation. It's sad. This has to be the situation that points out the importance of having more professionals on set and more eyes on safety. Elijah Snow says for $9.99, as someone who deals with human tragedy as part of their job, and having actually met Mr. Baldwin, I will say this. I wouldn't wish this on anyone. My prayers for everyone involved, even Mr. Baldwin. Good words. Hypergiver 2 said when Lorena came in, always happy to see the ever so beautiful Lorena. And Mags says for $5, honestly, the focus shouldn't be on Alec Baldwin and focusing energies on him. Our focus and energy should go towards Helena and her family. Yes, very true. She's the
that's what I've been
that is a tragedy here.
And the best way you can, do that is by asking ourselves, how do we make sure this doesn't happen again? And that's where we go through all the safety precautions. We see how it went wrong and what we can do in the future to change that. That's the best way we can honor her memory, especially going forward anyway. And we can't really personally do anything, I know, but I'm saying the industry, that's what they can do.
Sure. Exactly. Then we have Stitches Loft, who says for $10, always treat a firearm as if it's loaded. Never point the firearm at anything you do not intend to shoot. Never put your finger on the trigger until you are ready to shoot. Stargate forever. And Kaiju King Gabriel says for $2, Daniel Radcliffe stunt double from Harry Potter. Yeah, that was another one who, we mentioned earlier. And then we got this one. JCM says for $5 the allegation is that he was upset about another take and pointed it. He's an experienced actor and should know better. Yeah, that's a rumor, and we do not know if it's real. If it is, I'm sure we will learn that soon enough, and that puts a different spin on things.
Even if that is still the case, it's still probably just a poor choice of words, because I'm sure that he was meant to aim it at the camera. That's the thing that makes the most sense to me. Like, because this is not we brought that up several times over already. So
yeah, exactly. So we don't know exactly what. We'll just have to wait and see. And then Kenneth LaRock says for $5 hey all, hope everyone is well. So yeah, thanks for that. I think we got it already. And then Donnie B. Vapin said for $5, my name is Donnie, so after The Big Lebowski, I never heard the end of it. 8-year-old dude. LOL, love Goodman and love you all. Oh, thank you. And Christian Coralejo wondered, did you guys ask my question to Kamran yet? No, but we did when we got this super chat. And Callum Lyle said, off topic, Lorena and Kamran, how long do you think Kevin Smith's...
Oh, we got that one.
Oh, yeah, we got this one too, yeah.
Yeah.
Then T. Neil 89 said John Landis' accident is probably still the worst.
Yeah, we got that one too, yeah.
Stitches Loft said trust but verify.
I don't know if we got that one, but that's still good to know. Good
Yeah,
to reiterate.
and Callum Lyle said voice actor Mary Elizabeth McGlynn from Cowboy Bebop anime director got injured when she was doing Xena. Yeah, I don't think we got that one, but yeah, there's been so many. Yeah. And Aaron Rogers said for $5, you guys remember the car accident during Cannibal Run where a lady stunt double was killed? They had to cut the scene. Yeah, again, another example.
Well, in most of these cases, when this happens, the scenes are never in the film. The only time that I know of where the stunt that actually killed the persons that are on is still in the film is like the Road Warrior one, I believe.
That could
but
be.
Not the actual death is on camera is like the whole point. Yeah.
And Callum Lyle said, sorry, but that's fine. You're forgiven. And it wasn't, again, we're just having conversations here, and we're so glad that we're able to bring different perspectives. But we do appreciate everyone seeing, oh yeah, that's a good point of view that I hadn't considered. That's the best we can do. And Patrick Mulligan said for $5, sound design was great. Real Views and others had the same issue. A decent chunk of dialogue was drowned out. It was like listening to a Nolan film.
I didn't have that problem. That sounds like a calibration problem.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like the theater itself just did not have stuff set up right.
It does sound like that, yes. And
it reminds me of the time. Sorry, not to go a long story, but I was watching when I went to see The Green Mile in the theater. The center channel went out. So that means you can hear all the ambience and the noise and everything else, but you couldn't hear a single fucking thing they were saying. And it happened during the scene when Coffee cures Tom Hanks of his penile shit problem he's having, the infection.
Oh, yeah, he had a urinary tract infection.
So what the fuck's going on? Like,
is he giving him a hand job? What is this?
No, yeah, because all you could hear was the noise in the background. You couldn't hear any of the voices at all. But anyway, go on, Trey. Yeah. So that could be a problem, is the calibration.
And then Snow Dub Music and Entertainment said for $5, I visit Bruce Lee's grave every time I go visit Seattle. Brandon is buried right next to him. Believe me, the memory of these tragic events doesn't fade. Oh, nor should they, because that's how we keep them fresh.
No, so and we talk about the Brandon Lee tragedy all the time still. Like, so this is not something that's going to necessarily go away or in any way, shape, or form, I think. This is sadly just going to be one more we talk about when we get there. into those topics, unfortunately.
Yeah. And Naked Fame, he says for $2 what Kathleen Kennedy says in the privacy of her own home. Kalima shook today.
And she rips the heart out of all Star Wars fans.
Oh my god.
And T Neil 89 said for $5, a bit late with this, but check out the training video of Keanu Reeves and Halle Berry at the range to see how much of a difference there is with live ammo. Yeah, everyone check that out. That's a cool video. I've seen it before. Keanu Reeves and Halle Berry at the range. Go check that out.
Mm-hmm.
And SCR Red Wolf says for $5, keeping sane with a tragedy, preventing another different tragedy. Midnight's Edge does it right. Can we get 1K likes? Smash that like button.
Yeah, we got that one before, but
yeah, we got it, and we also got the 1K likes. So thank you, everyone. And then let's see, we got this one, and I think we got the Rod Thunderheart about.
Yep. You got
and
it
then
first too,
and then we got Moldovan Alin, who says tragedy makes us respect risks of movie making. And then we got Thunderstorm. I remember that one. We got this one too. And we got Kit Kat's question about the single bullet. We got Ranmusu. We got
while you're looking for the next one we didn't get, I got one from Aaron Pipes that we can bring up on screen right now. It says the Afghans own more guns than Americans. Their national sport is kicking the shit out of superpowers. Well,
maybe.
Actually, that's fun. I think somebody else brought up there's a couple other countries that actually have more guns than America, but yeah. Dwayne Oldson says gun rights issues are very American, but they are almost irrelevant to this tragedy. A film company could foul up just as badly in London. Yes,
this has nothing to do with gun rights.
No.
Yes, but I was just bringing it up because it will be used, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Don't count that out. Every political angle that can be used on this will be used in the next few weeks to months. Trust me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everyone will try to get their preferred political cause in there, and that's the real tragedy here. It's that the wrong lessons are going to be learned because it's going to be drowned out by people trying to force in their particular case.
Yeah.
And Rod Thunderheart wonders. You have to say the name, Tom.
Rod Thunderheart.
And he wonders if Spider-Man No Way Home is released the same day in Norway as in North America. I have no idea. I have to check that.
Good question.
Let's see.
While you're looking at that, I'm going to read Diego Flores' super chat with 10 Peruvian souls. Says, I will state this for Dune, just checking trends. It seems once Dune had an uptick on searches, the searches for cinema also upticked. Dune may be bigger than expected, even if on high seas. Unfortunately, last night wasn't a very good first night in America for Dune, but we'll see how that goes throughout the weekend. Maybe word of mouth will help it, Diego. But I really do feel like it being on HBO Max and HBO Max being as successful as it has been so far is really going to kill this weekend's box office.
Yeah. I'm looking for the spot. Like they changed the webpage here for.
Well, that's the other problem is looking up a date for a movie anymore is nearly impossible because they changed.
Yeah, here in Norway too, they changed the freaking web page that used to be.
Well, not just that, but just they changed the dates so many times now. Like,
yeah,
you have to really look through Google even sometimes to make sure you're reading the right date because sometimes they'll put the original date that it was supposed to be out, and then like all this other crap underneath it. Like, yeah,
I don't see it here.
No.
Well, I think it's going to come at approximately the same time, but I don't see it here right now. So
I'm going to say, going by history, in most cases, you'll get it roughly the same time.
Yeah, it should be roughly the same time. Well, it's only Venom that we're getting much later.
Venom's a totally different animal because I think
exactly. But Spider-Man should be exactly the same time in Norway as in the US. Should be exactly the same time or even earlier.
I was going to say you might even get it a few days to a week earlier.
Yeah.
Who knows?
And then Patrick Mulligan says for $5 Canadian, at Midnight's Edge's recommendation, I watched a Spice Diver edit of Dune, a definite improvement on the original, and it still allows the film miniseries better. Oh yeah, but it's still the definitive version of the original, isn't it? And that's all we promised. And the Black Douglas says for £10. Oh yeah, we got this. No. the answer to the riddle from earlier about who is better off, the family that grows the potatoes, the family that cuts the beef. The one who's better off is the Batman. That's the answer to the riddle.
I knew the answer. You didn't ask me.
Yeah. And MJ1 Media says Deadpool shot 1 bullet, killed 2 out of 3 bad guys. Yes, it can be done even on film. And then let's see, we got that one, and Mr. Tickle Trunk says, and this is something that is very pertinent to what's going to happen here with the politicization of this event. Never let a tragedy go to waste is a saying for a reason. I won't believe anything until there's a statement from law enforcement. Always a good sentiment in situations like these. Mecha J says for $5, you think there's going to be even more safety precautions for using guns on set. For example, like using CGI effects instead of practical effects. And yeah, this is something that absolutely could cause overreactions. It absolutely could. And Callum Lyle said, Simu Liu will say something stupid. Yeah, maybe he will. Let's hope he won't, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did, because he does that. Commandant VHS says for $2, seems to be a lot of accidents on Hollywood sets. I think we got that food because this is something that's very true from history. And then yeah, we got this one, and Aaron Pipes says for $5, the Afghans owned more guns than Americans.
Oh, we got that one. We just got that one.
Yeah, we just kicking the shit out of superpowers.
Okay, so we're caught up there. Yep, we got that one.
Yeah, but we have more.
Yep, what's after that one?
And then Dwayne Olson says gun rights issues are very American.
Got that one, okay.
But yeah. Diego Flores, I will state this for $2.
Okay, we're caught up then.
No, there's still a few more.
I mean, we're caught up to where I'm on the screen. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, because I can't see the screen and this at the same time.
Okay, so
and then we have this one, yeah. Mr. Tickle Trunk says, have a heart. Put yourself in Alec's shoes. He's human too. He might even be reflecting on his past statements with what tragically happened yesterday. I don't think he's going to do that. I think the only way he's going to do that is like, fuck, that really came back to bite me.
Well, that could be.
But, yeah. And then the Mad Leprechaun says for $5, it's both great and sad that a guy like Andre has better knowledge of the Second Amendment than most, not all, Americans.
Yeah, well,
you ain't kidding.
He speaks better English than I do, too. Ram Bam 3000 is next with £5. Says, stuntman was dragged to his death during the chariot race in Heston's Ben-Hur. The scene is in the movie. Oh, yeah, that's right. That is true, Ram Bam. I forgot all about
that. Was way back when.
Yep. That's when they would just tell you to get up and walk it off.
Exactly.
And then it jumped on me. So let's see. The next one I have here is, I believe, Rob Altus. Was there any in between there?
No, Rob.
I have to refresh behind the scenes because now we're caught up.
I still got the chat scrolling.
Okay, so I was wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
Rob Altus corrected me. No one died on the set of Road Warrior. Injured, yes. Okay, use the clip. I talked to crewmen. Oh, okay. I misheard the story then. I thought somebody did actually die, but
yeah, so that's the next one. There was
that's a good example of I should have checked that before I said that, but
yeah. And then the next one should be from Organic Vistas.
Yep, we got one moment without fear is all it takes with a gun.
Yeah.
Mad Leprechaun then says, to quote a friend's post on Facebook, first 10 minutes of Dune is already better than all of Star Wars Episode 8 and 9. I agree wholeheartedly. I love it.
It absolutely is.
I loved it. We did our review yesterday, and I couldn't say enough about it. My few minor gripes seemed like more than they were actually in the end. So
yeah.
With that,
we only have like some. Did we get the member chats?
No, we did not.
Behind the scenes,
we do have a couple member chats. One from Accidental Tourist, who has been a member for 7 months as an edgelord. Thank you so much. Says, some like the term fellowship. I still prefer La Fandom Nostra.
La Fandom Nostra, our fandom. Yeah, that's good.
Eric
and then we have Erik Runge Madsen, who says, James Cameron basically tortured the cast in the abyss.
I am so surprised nobody died making that fucking movie.
You ain't kidding. In fact, when you were talking about the underwater
surprised.
stuff earlier, that's the movie I was thinking of.
Right? Yeah, when he's like, take a breath because you're not going to get one for 5 minutes.
Exactly.
Right?
That would have been Cameron.
Yeah. Scott Ruggles sends in $5, says armors work under the prop masters, but armors won't join IATSE because the unions only support Dems who aren't friendly to gun rights. See, this is where the things are going to get political, Scott.
Yeah, this is where it goes.
This is where I said things are going to get fucking muddy and very messy in the next few weeks with this whole goddamn thing.
Yeah.
And
we
just need to remember.
I don't think it's necessarily wrong, and I don't know for sure, but I could believe that. I'm not saying it is true, but I could certainly believe it.
It wouldn't surprise me, and I know IATSE was the one who was putting out there that it was bullets in the gun, so we don't even know that for sure.
Right.
I haven't found another report on that. So, and there's a lot of people throwing a lot of other things into the mix out there that have no clue what they're talking about. And we've done the best we could here today. And again, I apologize if we've gotten certain things wrong, but we have done the best we could to not assume anything about the situation, and also had Valliant here to help us with actual technical things when it comes to guns. Other than that, we're doing our best just through knowledge, and we had Script Doctor in the background doing the best he could to throw what he could while he was at work, because he's actually worked in prop departments before too. And as he told me last night, they are two completely separate departments, but yeah. So here we go.
And look, everything we said, just as a reminder,
so here he just corrected again. Yeah, he goes, I worked with armorers in Canada. They are part of IATSE, so that must be a U.S. thing. So he's either saying that that's not the case, or as far as he knows, that's the situation. So
yeah, that would make more sense. But I could see some of them not wanting to be, But yeah, I understand. But again, everything today we've discussed in terms of what could have, may have, possibly have happened. Everything's been hypothetical. We're speculating based on what little information we have and trying to come up with every possible academic what may have happened on the set, but we don't know yet. And that's the most important thing for everybody to take away from today, is that this was, this was just a discussion on what could have been.
Yeah,
exactly.
All right. And with that, I want to thank everybody, especially those who stuck around with us the whole show. We had almost 2,000 watching at one point, but we have still over 1,000 of you watching. Thank you for being here today. We appreciate this. I hope you all have a very safe and happy weekend. I'm going to be heading over to a member stream right now for Pop Culture, the Popcast. That's what it was. I'm sorry. The Popcast right now. And then later on, I'll be on FNT. Valliant, you got anything coming up real quick you want to plug before we go besides your channel?
Not really. We were discussing the indie stuff, Marvel stuff earlier. If anybody wants to go back and watch that 1 hour interview with Cameron, we really went into a lot of depth in there. That's the last video I posted on my channel from a few days ago. Should have one coming up. I'm going to do one on some of the Netflix numbers. Of course, AT&T reported yesterday morning with some updates on HBO Max, talking about that along with the Squid Game stuff on Netflix. From the financial side, got some interesting stuff. Bloomberg, Netflix puts a $900 million impact value on Squid Game, which is astonishing. So we're going to talk about that. Yeah, so that'll be coming up.
Awesome. And also, Naked Fame just upgraded her membership, so that is amazing. She's now an edgelord.
Is Naked Fame a girl? Yeah. I thought it was a he.
No. I honestly, I'm unsure. Like Naked Fame, or he or she. I don't want to misgender here. But in either event, Naked Fame.
It's a guy. I was going to say, I'm pretty sure Naked Fame's a guy.
Yeah, well, sorry for misgendering.
No, now you just offended him, and they're no longer a member. Thanks a lot, Andre.
Yeah, well, it's been a long day. But anyway, Naked Fame, he is now an edgelord,
now
and welcome like, to
I'm
that
a woman
level.
Now I'm going to go look at myself in the mirror and masturbate. Like, that I could see Naked Fame say.
And on that note, folks, we're done.
And he pretty much did. I'm a pretty girl now, see?
And we also had Sporking News Podcast who rejoined, and Sebulon Pike also became a new member, became a Midnighter today. So welcome to the level.
And I do plan on doing a member stream at some point on Midnight's Edge After Dark this weekend, even if it's just me. So we'll do that. And yeah, we got some more stuff. Andre and I have been discussing doing a member stream at a time that will benefit our international members as well, so that those who don't normally get to join when we do them can hopefully get a chance to get in there as well. And with that, I don't think there was anything else to say other than join Cameron's Patreon to get more insight into the industry, and check out Reina Creole's channel. And you can also find here every Monday night on Toxic Femininity. Was there anything else, Andre, we need to get into before we hit up some
I just want to say thank you to everyone. Also check out Reina Creole's channel, because she also came to visit. And with that, everyone, take care of yourself. And remember, in cases like this, keep your head cool and don't jump to conclusions, however tempting that may be.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Take care of yourselves and each other. Thanks again, Valliant, for being here.
Glad to be here. Take care, everybody.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given. Koala, koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given. Koalas in the rain.